Chapter 648. Zai Qiu initially thought that the three of them would directly deal a fatal blow to Qin Wenyan, killing him on the spot. However, he didn't expect the situation before his eyes. Qin Wenyan only needed a single strike to kill their comrade. This halberd strike caused them to be stunned. Their hearts pounded violently as they felt their breathing quickening. However, to Zai Qiu, he didn't have the time to be stunned, because Qin Wenyan's halberd instantly turned towards him. That flickering light seemed to have brought him into an illusory world. In this world, only that halberd strike had no way to evade. Feeling the terrifying destructive might contained within that halberd strike, Zai Qiu's body trembled. He felt that even his strongest attack wouldn't be able to defend against the might of that halberd strike. This halberd strike was capable of penetrating through his body, destroying him. Bzz. An intense light flashed as a terrifying corrosive energy gushed forth. Zai Qiu's fist blasted out as a divine weapon actually appeared in his hands. At the instant this divine weapon was released, the entire space seemed to be corroded away. The halberd in Qin Wenyan's hand stabbed out explosively, causing piercing sounds to ring out unceasingly. Astral light erupted forth as he retreated, instantly increasing the distance between him and Qin Wenyan. Fifth-ranked divine weapon. Qin Wenyan stared at Zai Qiu only to see a black-colored treasure in his opponent's right hand that exuded a terrifying corrosive energy. Numerous threads resembling the tentacles of an octopus extended outwards in all directions, causing the space around Zai Qiu to turn black. Is this the pride of your Zai clan? Divine weapon? A mocking smile appeared on Qin Wenyan's face, causing Zai Qiu to feel a burning sensation on his face. He actually used a fifth-ranked divine weapon? This was undoubtedly admitting that he was useless and needed the help of a divine weapon to defend against Qin Wenyan's attack. Zai Qiu, surnamed Zai. A heaven chosen of the royal sacred sect, how awe-inspiring. The mocking smile on Qin Wenyan's face grew thicker and thicker. His gaze swept over the experts of the royal sacred sect. All of them had ashen expressions on their faces. Today, they wanted to execute Qin Wenyan on the spot. However, because of the arrival of the immortal martial realms experts and the medicine sovereign, the sacred emperor personally came to spectate the battle. They initially thought that Zai Qiu and the others would be able to kill Qin Wenyan with their overwhelming combat prowess. Yet things didn't go as they wished. Qin Wenyan used absolute strength to kill the heaven chosen of the royal sacred sect, intimidating Zai Qiu into taking out a fifth-ranked divine weapon with a single strike. The sacred emperor was spectating the battle, yet the heaven chosen of the royal sacred sect couldn't do anything to an outsider. How humiliating was this? Not only that, Qin Wenyan even pointed at their noses and humiliated them. Bzz. A terrifying surge of dream force gushed forth as an ancient blood-colored halberd appeared in Qin Wenyan's hands. This was none other than the Scarlet Demon Halberd. Strands of the true intent of dreams were infused into it as Qin Wenyan moved once more, rushing towards Zai Qiu. With a wave of his hand, the Scarlet Demon Halberd shot out. Zai Qiu's eyes stared at the halberd, and in an instant, he was trapped in a space of purgatory. When Qin Wenyan activated the Scarlet Demon Halberd with his true intent, no matter how strong Zai Qiu's will was, he would still be trapped in the dreamscape created by the Scarlet Demon Halberd. The divine weapon in Zai Qiu's hands erupted forth, blotting out the skies. Numerous corrosive black tendrils extended out in all directions, yet in this blood-colored space, terrifying ancient halberds were unceasingly stabbing towards Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan's silhouettes could be seen everywhere. Damnable dreamscape. Zai Qiu's countenance turned pale. The offensive power of his divine weapon was extremely powerful, but in this dreamscape, it was basically useless, unable to display any effect. Pucci! The blood-colored ancient halberd pierced into his body, causing Zai Qiu's entire body to tremble uncontrollably. Bean-sized droplets of sweat unceasingly flowed down his face as he howled in a hoarse voice, "Enu!" In this endless dreamscape he would fall sooner or later. A terrifying sense of danger gushed over. Zai Qiu could hear the rumbling sounds of attacks ringing out in his ears, after which the dreamscape vanished. He only felt his entire body devoid of strength as he panted heavily. In front of him, a blood-colored ancient halberd pierced through the head of an expert, aiming straight for him. "Senior brother!" Zai Chio's body trembled as he saw the silhouette of the expert. He could feel his entire body shivering as a chill ran down his spine. That sense of danger was real. Qin Wenyan had used the Scarlet Demon Halberd to unleash a sure-kill attack. However, at the crucial moment, Xia Sheng had taken the brunt of Qin Wenyan's attack for Zai Chio, becoming Zai Chio's substitute and was slain by the Scarlet Demon Halberd. Bzz. A gust of wind gusted by. Xia Sheng's body seemed to have disintegrated into nothingness, disintegrating into nothingness. Just like his comrade earlier, his soul was shattered into pieces. Qin Wenyan's eyes were ice-cold as his killing intent soared. Zai Chio's eyes were scarlet red, and just when Qin Wenyan was preparing to continue his attack, numerous terrifying auras gushed over. A gust of wind swept Zai Chio's body away as a few people appeared before Qin Wenyan. Zai Chio, surnamed Zai, was a descendant of the Sacred Emperor. Although the Sacred Emperor couldn't be bothered with him, the people of the Royal Sacred Sect couldn't ignore him. Qin Wenyan had already killed Xia Sheng. They knew that if they continued fighting, Zai Chio would definitely die in Qin Wenyan's hands. It was already enough. Qin Wenyan had truly done enough. They absolutely couldn't allow him to continue being so brazen and kill Zai Chio in front of the Sacred Emperor. "Didn't we settle this ourselves?" Qin Wenyan lifted his Scarlet Demon Halberd and pointed it at the silhouette blocking his path. "Today, you acted so impudently in my Royal Sacred Sect. The Sacred Emperor won't hold it against you, but this matter ends here. Now scram." The person in front of Qin Wenyan had a gaze as cold as the edge of a blade. A terrifying might bore down on Qin Wenyan, causing Qin Wenyan to feel a boundless pressure bearing down on his arms, making it hard for him to lift them up. "Do you guys treat the words of Senior Sacred Emperor as farts?" Qin Wenyan mocked, his words causing the experts from the Royal Sacred Sect to stiffen. Although the Sacred Emperor was a few generations away from Zai Chio, they were still related by blood. Most probably, the Sacred Emperor wouldn't wish for Zai Chio to die, right? "Your strength isn't bad, why don't you join the Royal Sacred Sect?" At this moment, a voice drifted over. It was none other than the voice of the Sacred Emperor. These words were naturally directed at Qin Wenyan. "Senior Sacred Emperor, you should have already seen how the Royal Sacred Sect bullies others. Why should I join the Royal Sacred Sect?" Qin Wenyan stared at the horizons as he replied. "How dare you!" The experts from the Royal Sacred Sect all turned ashen. In front of the Sacred Emperor, Qin Wenyan actually dared to speak so rudely? The Royal Sacred Sect is the overlord of the Royal Sacred Region. The Sacred Emperor calmly spoke, no emotions could be heard from his voice. "What does that have to do with me? Join the Royal Sacred Sect and become their vassal?" Qin Wenyan's countenance was calm as he stared in the direction of the void. "Even if I don't join the Royal Sacred Sect, I can still dominate the Heavenly Dipper sovereigns of the Royal Sacred Sect. In the future, when I step into the peak of celestial phenomenon, I can similarly dominate the celestial phenomenon ascendants of the Royal Sacred Sect. What's the use of joining the Royal Sacred Sect then?" The arrogance in his calm voice caused the hearts of everyone to tremble. Even if he didn't join the Royal Sacred Sect, he could still dominate the Heavenly Dipper sovereigns of the Royal Sacred Sect. Since he was unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper, what's the use of joining the Royal Sacred Sect? His words were undoubtedly filled with disdain towards the Royal Sacred Sect. However, the experts from the Royal Sacred Sect didn't know how to refute. "Little fellow, you are too arrogant." The Sacred Emperor faintly spoke. From afar, a supreme pressure enveloped Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan seemed to have seen a pair of eyes from afar. That pair of eyes gleamed with a light that caused Qin Wenyan to feel a sense of suffocation. At this instant, he felt as though his entire body was out of his control. That pair of eyes that came from the void seemed to be able to penetrate through his body. "The path you have to walk is still too long. You guys can leave now." The Sacred Emperor faintly spoke. After which, that pressure vanished without a trace, and that pair of eyes vanished as well. His emotionless voice was like a command. That was the sacred emperor, an immortal. No matter how high one's talent was, in front of immortals, they were still existences akin to ants. From the ancient times until now, there were so many geniuses in the royal sacred region, but how many of them could become immortals? I will listen to Senior's teachings. Qin Wenyan stared at the horizons as he politely spoke. No matter how the sacred emperor questioned him, he was still the sacred emperor, an immortal. Qin Wenyan had a ferocious tiger in his heart. His will was extremely resolute. The path of cultivation was long. There was no need for him to prove anything to others. However, the royal sacred region wouldn't be his final destination. This piece of sky was merely a part of his life. After speaking, Qin Wenyan turned and held onto Mo Qingqing's hand. The two of them exchanged a smile as they walked to the side of the medicine sovereign. If the sacred emperor didn't wish for Zai Qiu to die, it was impossible for him to kill Zai Qiu. The situation today could already be considered peaceful. The experts from the royal sacred sect didn't act because the immortal martial realm and the medicine sovereign had arrived. If not, the sacred emperor wouldn't have appeared. However, Qin Wenyan didn't think that this was the main point. He wanted to kill Zai Qiu, and since Zai Qiu had witnessed Xia Sheng's death, how could he spare him? In any case, the grudge between him and the hegemon of the royal sacred region, the royal sacred sect, had already been formed. Senior medicine sovereign, let's leave. Qin Wenyan spoke. The medicine sovereign stroked his long beard as he smiled and nodded his head. It wasn't easy for Qin Wenyan to be able to put down his sword. Sacred Emperor, farewell. The medicine sovereign stared at the horizons as he spoke. After which, the experts from the medicine sovereign valley soared into the air and departed. Junior Wu Mu, farewell. The experts from the immortal martial realm also departed one after another, as though they had never been here before. As for those from the royal sacred sect, they all felt as though they had lost all face. Qin Wenyan used his actions today to prove to the royal sacred region that even if he was inferior to the royal sacred sect, he was still unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper. What was the point of joining the royal sacred sect? Are you still not coming out? Another faint voice drifted over. It was the voice of the sacred emperor. The hearts of many experts from the royal sacred sect tightened. There was actually still someone here? They actually didn't discover it. In the air, intense spatial fluctuations could be felt. After which, a golden screen of light cascaded downwards as a graceful silhouette descended from the skies, standing in the air, akin to a celestial maiden. Who is this female? Many people furrowed their brows. It was actually a young female, yet they didn't discover her existence at all. She must have some sort of spatial treasure. The eyes of this female were cold, as she stared at the experts from the royal sacred sect. Her entire body was flawless, and even when she stood before the experts of the royal sacred sect, she still exuded a magnificence that surpassed the generations, causing people to think of Qin Wenyan's fiancée, Mo Qingqing. Both of them had different demeanors, yet both of them exuded an extremely powerful aura. If anything happens to him, I will raise the entire royal sacred sect to flat ground. A cold and melodious voice rang out from the mouth of the female, after which she turned and departed. At this instant, the experts of the royal sacred sect were all stunned. They even forgot to block her. The hegemon of the royal sacred region, today, they heard the most brazen voice in their history. Chapter 649. The experts of the royal sacred sect were countless. At this moment, all of them were dumbfounded. As the absolute hegemon of the royal sacred region, a single word from the royal sacred sect was the law under the heavens. Nobody dared to defy them. But today, a dazzling young woman with a mysterious glow appeared here with a spatial treasure. In front of the experts of the royal sacred sect and even the sacred emperor, she threatened them that if anything happened to her, she would definitely raise the entire royal sacred sect to flat ground. Such unexcelled arrogance toppled the logic of the experts of the royal sacred sect. What sort of person would dare to say such arrogant words? However, that spatial treasure was truly too powerful. Many of them were at the upper third level of celestial phenomenon, yet they didn't discover her presence. It seemed that only the sacred emperor knew of her existence. Moreover, even though she was very young and her voice was crisp and cold, there was an unquestionable determination in her beautiful eyes. It was as though she would be able to do what she said. Capture her. When the young woman left, only then did everyone realize that they were stunned by a single sentence from her. A cold voice rang out, filled with a towering coldness. It was none other than a peak-level celestial phenomenon ascendant of the Royal Sacred Sect. As a hegemon of the Royal Sacred Sect, how could they tolerate such threats? However, they only saw a golden light illuminating the skies as a terrifying spatial energy permeated the area. That beautiful silhouette stepped onto a bridge of nothingness, directly stepping into the void. When the barrier of light closed, her silhouette had already vanished completely. The experts of the Royal Sacred Sect sped over only to hear a calm voice drifting over, "She has already left." Left? The experts of the Royal Sacred Sect were all dumbfounded. What a powerful spatial treasure, able to conceal herself so well that no one could detect her presence. Sacred Emperor, this woman threatened our Royal Sacred Sect. She deserves death. An old man coldly spoke. Can you guys capture her? The emotionless voice rang out, causing the eyes of the old man to freeze. After which, the Sacred Emperor continued, that woman shouldn't be someone from the Royal Sacred Region. The hearts of everyone trembled, yet that old man continued, what should we do then? Humph. A cold snort rang out, containing a hint of dissatisfaction within. The entire space turned silent. The experts of the Royal Sacred Sect all felt a sense of pressure. The sage emperor seemed dissatisfied with them. Today, Zai Qiu, Xia Sheng and the others from the Royal Sacred Sect undoubtedly had the ability to contend against Qin Wenyan, yet they were still humiliated by Qin Wenyan in public. No wonder the Sacred Emperor was unhappy. Although his status was transcendent and he had long stopped caring about the matters of the Royal Sacred Region, it was inevitable for him to feel both joy and anger. Let alone the fact that the Royal Sacred Sect was being threatened. However, after this cold snort, the aura of the Sacred Emperor completely dissipated. The experts of the Royal Sacred Sect were silent for a long time before they sighed. What should they do? Did they still need the Sacred Emperor to teach them? No wonder the Sacred Emperor was unhappy. The matters today had already disturbed the Sacred Emperor and even caused the Royal Sacred Sect to lose face. Upon thinking of this, the experts of the Royal Sacred Sect couldn't help but feel anger in their hearts. They ruled over the world. When had they ever been so aggrieved? However, Qin Wenyan had no idea what was happening here. That woman who had been protecting him for over 10 years had never once betrayed him. She had always been silently standing behind him. Even though there were many times when he couldn't see her existence, he couldn't see her. The matter of the Royal Sacred Sect naturally shook the entire world. Although this matter happened in the Royal Sacred Sect, Qin Wenyan and the others had all left safely. In that case, there was no way to hide this matter. Naturally, other than the appearance of that maiden who exuded magnificence through the generations, at that time, only the experts of the Royal Sacred Sect were present. They wouldn't publicize this matter. The medicine sovereign personally came. The Realm Lord of the Immortal Martial Realm led the envoys of the Immortal Martial Realm to invite Qin Wenyan to join them, even if it meant offending the Royal Sacred Sect. The mysterious Immortal Martial Realm appeared in the vision of the crowd. So it turned out that the Immortal Martial Realm was also a major power. Every 10 years, the Immortal Martial Realm was actually to recruit the most outstanding heaven chosen. Because of this, even the Sacred Emperor of the Royal Sacred Sect appeared. Although it wasn't his true self, he still spoke. In front of the Sacred Emperor, Qin Wenyan slew Xia Sheng, Shang Li and the other 2 heaven chosen of the Royal Sacred Sect. Zai Qiu, who arrogantly told Qin Wenyan to go apologize to him, didn't dare to fight and chose to hide under the protection of the experts of the Royal Sacred Sect. In front of the Sacred Emperor, Qin Wenyan announced to the entire world that there was no need to join the Royal Sacred Sect. He was still unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper, easily killing the strongest Heavenly Dipper sovereigns of the Royal Sacred Sect. What was the point of joining the royal sacred sect? There were already many people who paid attention to this matter. This battle naturally became the topic of discussion for the people of the royal sacred region. Using only half a year's worth of time, Qin Wenyan went from being in a stalemate with Di Shi on the sacred battle platform, to comprehending a true intent of mandates and becoming unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper, completing yet another magnificent transformation. Such a transformation was something that countless people had no way to achieve. There were many people with talent who could step into the celestial phenomenon realm, but this didn't mean that they would be able to dominate all Heavenly Dipper sovereigns in the world when they were at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. After all, there were many celestial phenomenon ascendants, but existences like Qin Wenyan were extremely rare. However, just as Qin Wentian's name shook the world once again, he suddenly vanished without a trace. After the royal sacred sect left with the medicine sovereign, there was a total of 3 to 4 months where no news of Qin Wenyan was heard. There were people who said that he might have left the royal sacred region together with experts from the immortal martial realm. There were also people who said that since Qin Wenyan and Mo Qingqing were already engaged, they should be holding a secret wedding ceremony. Naturally, this was merely the conjecture of the masses. During these few months, Qin Wenyan didn't do many things. The most important thing he did was still cultivation. Di Tian was still undergoing tests in the Immortal Palace as his strength grew bit by bit. During these few months, when Qin Wenyan was in the Medicine Sovereign Valley, Mo Qingqing concocted many medicinal pills to aid him in his cultivation. These weren't pills that forcefully increased his cultivation base, but rather, they were pills that could solidify his foundation and unlock his potential. Finally, Qin Wenyan stepped into the final level of Heavenly Dipper, the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. Although his combat prowess was already unrivaled in Heavenly Dipper back when he was in the Royal Sacred Sect, he was only at the 8th level of Heavenly Dipper. After a few months, he finally stepped into the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. The next level was to form his constellation, stepping into the celestial phenomenon realm. Right now, the only thing Qin Wenyan felt depressed about was that even after stepping into the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper, Di Tian still had no way to defeat those immortals whose cultivation bases were sealed. Those fellows were simply too powerful, their memories and sentience weren't sealed, only their cultivation bases were sealed. Their proficiency in the usage of true intent, as well as their fusion techniques, had already reached the peak of perfection. They also had their own immortal arts that contained boundless might, but Di Tian's rate of improvement similarly caused those immortals to feel shock in their hearts. In the Medicine Sovereign Valley, spring was in full bloom. Everything was filled with greenery, and numerous immortal-like residences were built in the midst of the lush mountains. The fragrance of flowers permeated the air, and even the air was exceptionally fresh. On a green floating bridge, there was a simple wooden courtyard that was shrouded in mist, resembling a celestial realm. A maiden leaned against the railing of a green vine as she stared at the mountain peaks in the distance. The maiden was dressed in white, resembling a celestial maiden, and had a faint smile on her face. She was even more beautiful than the scenery before her. A figure stood behind the fairy-like woman in white. His hands were wrapped around her slender waist. The fairy gently leaned back. Her head just happened to be touching the face of the figure behind her. If others saw this scene, they would definitely be envious of the young man behind her. Lecture. Behind him, a snow-white puppy lay on the vine. It had a carefree expression on its face as it glanced lazily at Qin Wenyan. However, its immature voice was completely ignored by the two of them. During this period of time, only Qin Wenyan and Mo Qingqing were here, living a wonderful life that only a pair of mandarin ducks would envy, not immortals. Why aren't you cultivating anymore? Master said that since you've already comprehended the fusion of true intents, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to break through to the celestial phenomenon realm. As long as your cultivation base reaches the peak of the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper, success would follow naturally. Mo Qingqing turned her head and smiled at Qin Wenyan. Staring at that flawlessly beautiful countenance and red lips, Qin Wenyan lightly planted a kiss on her forehead, causing Mo Qingqing's face to turn red as she cursed in a low voice, "Don't you hate it at all?" You are so beautiful, even if I were to live 3 lifetimes, I wouldn't hate it. Qin Wendian smiled as he kissed her again, causing Emo Qingqing to glare at him as she turned her head away. Qingqing. At this moment, Qin Wendian gently called out. Emo Qingqing turned her head back only to see Qin Wendian hugging her even tighter as he stared at her with a gaze as gentle as water. What's wrong? Emo Qingqing's heartbeat quickened. Marry me. Qin Wendian passionately spoke. It has been over 10 years, ever since they left Chu, the two of them had experienced too many things. Right now, there was no one in the entire royal sacred region who didn't know of their relationship. All of them were envious of them and wished them well. Emo Qingqing's eyes reddened as glistening tears flickered in them. She had been waiting for Qin Wendian to speak. Staring at the tears in Emo Qingqing's eyes, Qin Wendian gently caressed her face as he gently spoke. Breaking through to the celestial phenomenon realm isn't something that can be accomplished in a day or two. Qingqing, will you marry me? Emo Qingqing heavily nodded her head. Her eyes were red as she cried tears of joy. At this moment, the smile on her face was so beautiful that it caused the hearts of others to tremble. Where are we going? Are we going to stay at the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Emo Qingqing gently asked. We will naturally return to where we came from. Qingqing, it has been many years since you returned home. Qin Wendian sighed. Ever since Emo Qingqing went to the Pill Emperor Hall, she had never returned to Chu. In the blink of an eye, over 10 years had passed. How could Qingqing not miss home? What about Master and the rest? Naturally, we will invite them over together. Let's return to Chu first. Qin Wendian smiled. Emo Qingqing's heart was filled with warmth. She lightly leaned against Qin Wendian's chest. He should already know what was in her heart. Return to where they came from. She truly wanted to return home to take a look. Wendian, when are we going back? Emo Qingqing asked in a low voice. Right now, let's move out. Qin Wendian brushed his fingers through Emo Qingqing's long hair. After which, he hugged Emo Qingqing as he soared up into the skies, causing Emo Qingqing to be stunned. But an instant later, a smile appeared in her eyes, so beautiful that it could topple empires. Wait for me. A young and tender voice drifted over. After which, a beam of white light shot towards Qin Wendian's shoulder as the two of them soared up into the skies. It had already been over 10 years since they parted. How could Qin Wendian not miss his family? His father Qin Chuan, sis Qin Yao, teacher Mustang, were they all doing well? Chapter 650. In the Chu country, the Emperor Chu Wei was in power. Although he couldn't cultivate, he wholeheartedly propagated the martial Tao, causing the Chu country to flourish with each passing year. Once upon a time in the Chu country, Yuanfu realm cultivators were considered to be at the pinnacle, while heavenly dipper sovereigns were considered legends. But now, there were even heavenly dipper sovereigns roaming the Chu country. The various academies in the royal capital had contributed greatly to the prosperity of the Chu country. This was especially so for the Emperor Star Academy that Chu Wuwei supported. They had an abundance of resources and powerful innate techniques, nurturing many outstanding characters. Every year, the top 10 rankers of the Jun Lin banquet all originated from the Emperor Star Academy. Not only that, the names of the 10 prodigies were often obtained by students from the Emperor Star Academy. Other than the efforts of the Emperor, the prosperity of the Chu country naturally couldn't be separated from the external world. Ever since the 9 Mystical Palace was destroyed, the Green Cloud Pavilion was the only power that could directly control the Chu country. The Green Cloud Pavilion didn't stand behind the scenes like the 9 Mystical Palace. Instead, they directly controlled Chu, Snow Cloud and the other 10 countries, merging them into the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. This Green Cloud Imperial Empire was controlled by the Green Cloud Pavilion from the shadows. Hence, the current Chu country was considered a subsidiary country of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. The competition between the 10 subsidiary countries was extremely intense, causing the Chu country to flourish even more. Although it was a subsidiary country of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, the Chu country was still independent and had a long history. Occasionally, There would be some famous historical figures who would become the topic of conversation among the citizens of Chu. An example would be Qin Wenyin and Chu Mang of the Golden Generation. Prince Chu Mang was ranked first among the 10 prodigies, with unparalleled strength. And there was also Qin Wenyin. He single-handedly toppled the Chu country's royal authority and even decided who the emperor of Chu would be. One could say that it was because of Qin Wenyin that Chu Wei became the emperor of Chu. The royal capital of Chu, this ancient capital city, had experienced the baptism of wind and frost, yet it still stood tall. It had its own unique history and stories. To the current Qin Wenyin, the royal capital of Chu was truly very small. Any random corner of the royal sacred region was bigger than the royal capital of Chu. But when he stepped into the airspace above the royal capital, an indescribable feeling appeared in his heart. 10 years had passed since he left Chu when he was 18 years old, heading towards Grand Xia to roam the world. Now, 10 years had already passed. Returning to his homeland, all the grudges and gratitude he had in the past were like fleeting clouds, dissipating like smoke. His heart was filled with warmth and memories, as a faint smile hung on his handsome countenance. Mo Qingqing was the same as well. It had been 10 years, how could she not miss her hometown? This was the place where she grew up, the place where she fell in love with Qin Wenyin. I still remember that time in the dark forest. I misunderstood you and Fan Lu. At that time, your back view was truly extremely stubborn. Mo Qingqing stared at the dark forest as she gently smiled, causing Qin Wenyin to recall the scene back then. If it wasn't for that misunderstanding, I'm afraid you wouldn't even remember me. Fuck you. Mo Qingqing rolled her eyes at Qin Wenyin, causing Qin Wenyin to laugh uproariously. Back then, Mo Qingqing was the #1 beauty in Chu, while he was a member of the Qin clan that the royal clan wanted to deal with. Who would have thought that they would end up together? That tree is still there. Do you still remember the snow that day? The two of them strolled in the air, as Mo Qingqing pointed to an ancient tree and laughed. How can I forget? That moment when you called me a Dumbo and turned back to look at me, my soul was already hooked away. At that time, my Qingqing was like a little vixen. Qin Wenyin joked. Mo Qingqing blushed as she pinched Qin Wenyan's cheeks. The two of them reminisced about the past as they strolled in the airspace of Chu, recalling all the bits and pieces of the past. On the streets of Chu, there were people who inclined their heads and stared at the sky as their hearts involuntarily trembled. What a beautiful maiden! Those silhouettes stared at Mo Qingqing, unable to shift their gazes away. Compared to the maiden in front of them, the current #1 beauty in Chu was so insignificant. However, at this moment, this fairy-like maiden had a smile on her face as she held onto the hand of a young man. She had a blissful smile on her face, but she didn't know how moving her heart was. However, nobody dared to step into the air to disturb them. That unruly aura, fluttering long hair, and eyes that shone like the stars in the night sky were definitely not an ordinary character. Shall we go to Sky Harmony City first? Mo Qingqing gently asked. Qin Wenyan's home was located in Sky Harmony City. Since we're already in the royal capital, we'll naturally go to your home first. Qin Wenyan smiled. Staring at Qin Wenyan's gaze, Mo Qingqing smiled and nodded her head. She believed that with the current Qin Wenyan's attitude, there was no way he would be calculative about the matters of the past with her family. Qin Wenyan naturally wouldn't be calculative. He wasn't so petty, and he deeply loved the maiden beside him. Naturally, he would accept the matters of the past. Everything that happened in the past, let it be buried in the wind. The Mo residence was still one of the few great clans in Chu. After Old Man Mo broke through to Heavenly Dipper, the status of the Mo residence rose by a lot. Also, there were rumors saying that the little miss of the Mo clan, the #1 beauty in Chu, Mo Qingqing, was accepted as a disciple by a major character from a transcendent power in Grand Xia. However, there were many who still had doubts about this. After all, so many years had passed, and no one had seen Mo Qingqing return. But even without Mo Qingqing, the status of the Mo residence was still extremely high. They had many guards, and the Mo residence was flourishing. At this moment, outside the Mo residence, There were many guards standing guard. At this moment, they inclined their heads and stared into the distance, unable to shift their gazes away. What a handsome man and woman, exuding magnificence through the generations. Not only that, the two of them actually floated in the air in front of them. "You guys are?" The guards stared at the two of them as he asked in bewilderment. "Let's enter." Qin Wenin held onto Emo Qingqing's hand as they landed on the ground, after which they slowly walked out. The guards only felt their vision blurring as the two of them disappeared from their sight. Everyone was greatly shocked as they turned and dashed into the residence. After entering the residence, Emo Qingqing slowly walked about, gazing at the grass and trees as an innocent smile appeared on her face. Many people were stunned when they saw the two of them. Finally, an older butler recognized Emo Qingqing. His body trembled in the wind as he bowed and asked, "Miss Qingqing, have you returned home?" "Michim, I've returned home." Emo Qingqing nodded. The old butler stared at the smile on Emo Qingqing's face as tears flowed down his face. After which, he turned and ran into the Emo residence while shouting, "Miss has returned, Miss Qingqing has returned home." Those guards who followed them in felt their hearts trembling when they heard the old butler's voice. Miss Qingqing. In the Emo residence, there was only a single Miss Qingqing. She was the #1 beauty in Chu 10 years ago, Emo Qingqing. The entire Emo residence was in an uproar. In the younger generation of the Emo residence, there was no one more outstanding than Emo Qingqing. Although she had already left home for over 10 years, there were still people who would occasionally mention this #1 beauty in Chu. Not long after, many people appeared before Qin Wendian and Emo Qingqing. To Qin Wendian, these people were all strangers. He only knew Emo Qingqing's father, Emo Tianlin. But to Emo Qingqing, these people were all her family. Those elders who had watched Emo Qingqing grow up felt their hearts trembling when they saw her again. She was even more beautiful now, and her demeanor was even more majestic than before. Just by casually standing there, it was as though everything in this world had lost their luster. As for those juniors who had grown up, they were all dumbfounded. When they were young, they loved to surround their elder sister Qingqing because she was simply too beautiful. Now that they had all grown up, only when they saw Emo Qingqing again did they truly understand how soul-stirring Emo Qingqing's beauty was. So much so that when many people saw Qin Wendian holding onto Emo Qingqing's hand, their gazes were filled with unhappiness. This was especially so for some of the younger males. They didn't know who this young man was. Such a beautiful maiden from their Emo residence was actually captured by him? Father, mother. Emo Qingqing walked up and threw herself into the embrace of her parents. They hugged each other tightly and only separated after a long period of time. Emo Tianlin stared at Qin Wendian as he sighed in his heart. This young man whose name shook the entire Chu country during the Jun Lin banquet had already undergone a complete transformation. His eyes were so deep that no one could see through him. After so many years, he was actually able to hold onto Emo Qingqing's hand and bring her home together. 10 years, they had never been separated from each other. "Uncle Emo," Qin Wendian called out. Emo Tianlin replied as he nodded his head. "Seeing that the two of you can still be together, I feel much better in my heart." Back then, Emo Tianlin actually liked Qin Wendian very much. It was only because of the appearance of Hua Xiaoyun that he and his grandfather had different standpoints. Hence, he could only listen to his grandfather. "Qingqing, after we return to Chu, I will marry Qingqing. Uncle Emo, you won't object, right?" Qin Wendian warmly smiled. Upon hearing his words, the people in the surroundings all trembled as they stared at Qin Wendian. Even Emo Tianlin was stunned. He glanced at Emo Qingqing only to see her walking to Qin Wendian's side and holding onto his hand. Emo Tianlin knew that even if he objected, he wouldn't be able to change anything. Hence, he nodded his head and smiled. "Since Qingqing is willing, I naturally have no objections." This time around, the people of the Emo residence were all shocked. Who was this young man? Why did Emo Tianlin agree to him so easily? Just based on Emo Qingqing's beauty, how many outstanding characters would come to the Emo residence to propose marriage? Even with the nobility of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, or even the outstanding characters of the Green Cloud Pavilion, their hearts would surely be moved. Tianlin. An elder of the Mo clan called out, only to see Mo Tianlin interrupting, "Let's go, don't just stand here. Let's go and have a seat in the residence." Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing nodded their heads. After they sat down in the residence, Mo Qingqing was dragged away by her mother. Many people surrounded Qin Wendian as they contemplated him. There were even some who asked Qin Wendian about his cultivation base and his family background. Qin Wendian only smiled and didn't reply. He only focused on drinking his wine. At this moment, an old man walked over. This old man exuded the aura of dragons and tigers, exuding a faint aura of might. When he saw Qin Wendian, he was also stunned. "Father, this man came to propose marriage to Qingqing, saying that he wants to marry Qingqing." Someone reported. This person was none other than a brother of Mo Tianlin. At this moment, great waves of shock rose up in Old Man Mo's heart. Qin Wendian actually brought Mo Qingqing back. He initially thought that he would never be able to see the two of them again. The crowd only saw Old Man Mo walking towards Qin Wendian. Upon seeing Qin Wendian standing up, Old Man Mo's back bent slightly as he politely spoke to Qin Wendian, "Take a seat." Qin Wendian started. He didn't expect Old Man Mo to be so polite to him. Old Man Mo. Qin Wendian wanted to say something, yet Old Man Mo personally poured a cup of wine for him. He then turned to Qin Wendian. "Qin Wendian, the matters in the past," this old man was muddle-headed. "I've let you and Qingqing down. Now that the two of you have returned, I'm already very satisfied. This time around, I will definitely make sure to properly arrange your wedding." Qin Wendian. Many in the crowd trembled when they heard this name. So it was him. No wonder he looked so familiar. Back then during the Jun Lin banquet, they had even seen him from afar a few times. This was the young man who once caused huge waves in the Chu country. Back then he and Mo Qingqing were in love, and now, they were still together. However, didn't Old Man Mo disagree back then? Why was he so polite to Qin Wendian now? How could they know that back then when Old Man Mo saw Qin Wendian releasing his astral souls in anger, his heart and soul were already trembling? Thinking about it carefully, he also felt that he had let Mo Qingqing down. After that, he roamed the Grand Xia Empire, and until now, there was a piece of news that he hadn't completely digested. The top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, Qin Wendian, dragged the demon sword for 100,000 miles, sacrificing his blood to the demon sword, transforming into a great rock and splitting the Pill Emperor Hall apart. The Pill Emperor Hall was one of the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. Splitting the Pill Emperor Hall apart, all for the sake of Hongyan? Who was Hongyan? Mo Qingqing. Nobody knew how shocked Old Man Mo was when he heard this news back then. It was as though he had been struck by lightning. Even now, he could still remember the expressions on the faces of the people of Grand Xia when they spoke about the legend of Qin Wendian. Chapter 651. After Old Man Mo learned of what Qin Wendian had done, he felt extremely guilty in his heart. This was especially so when he heard that the Pill Emperor Hall actually sacrificed Mo Qingqing's corpse. He strongly blamed himself. Although he was very powerful, Mo Qingqing was still his granddaughter. These matters, Old Man Mo had never told anyone in the Mo residence before. He himself didn't even know if Mo Qingqing was dead or alive. Now that he saw that Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing had returned together, he finally understood. "Old Man Mo, let's drink a toast. Let the matters of the past be forgotten in this cup of wine. If Wendian was disrespectful in any way, please don't take it to heart." Qin Wendian raised his wine cup to Old Man Mo, his words causing Old Man Mo to laugh uproariously. "Good, I can rest assured with these words of yours. In the future, leave Qingqing to me. This can be considered as having one less worry in my heart. Come, cheers." The two of them drained their cups of wine in a single gulp. Old Man Mo stared at the members of the Mo residence as he stated, "From now onwards, Qin Wendian is the son-in-law of my Mo residence." Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wendian as a smile flickered in her eyes. She winked at Qin Wendian, appearing exceptionally mischievous. "Are you really Qin Wendian?" At this moment, A young man walked to the side of Qin Wenyan, staring at Qin Wenyan with curiosity in his eyes. This young man had delicate features, his eyes gleaming with a bright light. He didn't look like a silk pants from a major clan, but when he looked at Qin Wenyan, an expression of hope could be seen in his eyes. "Vechim, you know me?" Qin Wenyan smiled. This young man seemed to be around 18 years of age. Looking at him, Qin Wenyan couldn't help but think of himself back then. Yes. The young man's face flushed red, as though he was extremely nervous. He stared at Qin Wenyan. "My name is Mo Feng, I'm the cousin of Sis Qingqing. When you participated in the Jun Lin banquet, I was only 8 years old." Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes flickered as she stared in bewilderment at the handsome young man. That chubby little fellow from back then had actually grown so big. Qin Wenyan stared at Mo Feng as he nodded his head. Mo Feng stuttered as though he was extremely anxious. "Brother-in-law, you are Mo Feng's idol. He has worshipped you for many years." The voice of a young girl drifted over as a slender and elegant maiden walked out from the side. She bore a slight resemblance to Mo Qingqing, and although she didn't have the magnificence of Mo Qingqing, she could still be considered a rare beauty, filled with the vitality of youth. "Could this be Mo Yu?" Mo Qingqing mumbled in a low voice. The person beside her laughed. "Qingqing, this is Mo Yu. In the blink of an eye, over 10 years have passed. When you left, she was still a little lass. But now, the number of people who came to our Mo residence to propose marriage is so high that the doorstep of our Mo residence is broken. Sis Qingqing." Mo Yu sweetly called out to Mo Qingqing. "Wenyan, seems like we have all grown old." Mo Qingqing and Qin Wenyan exchanged glances as they smiled. Mo Feng and Mo Yu were the children of her uncle. Back then, they were still children, but now, they have already grown up. "Silly lass, you are already old. What does your mother count for?" Mo Qingqing's mother stroked her hair as everyone sighed in their hearts. Mo Qingqing was too beautiful, so beautiful that you would forget how young she was. It was as though the passage of time didn't leave any traces on her. "Brother-in-law, this is the first time we meet. Should I give you a greeting gift?" A mischievous look appeared on Mo Yu's face as she smiled sweetly at Qin Wenyan. "Mo Yu, aren't your skin a little too thick?" Mo Feng spoke in disdain. "How can I be the same as you? Your face would turn red the moment you see brother-in-law. The girl you like doesn't even dare to confess, and you would only mumble to yourself every day." Mo Yu giggled as she stared at Mo Feng, causing Mo Feng to point at her. You? A joyful smile appeared on Qin Wenyan's face as he stared at this pair of sisters. With an intention of his will, he took out a dress from his robes. The dress was sparkling and translucent, and shone with a dazzling light. "Do you like it?" Qin Wenyan stared at Mo Yu as he asked. "Wenyan, is this a divine robe?" Old man Mo could feel the fluctuations of astral energy. "Nichim." Qin Wenyan nodded. Mo Yu received the robe and smiled. "Thank you, brother-in-law." After speaking, Mo Yu draped the robe over her body. Astral energy flowed from her body, seeping into the robe, causing an even more dazzling light to circulate around it. The robe actually glowed with light, resembling an armor of light. Mo Yu jumped up in joy as she spun in circles. "What weapon do you use?" Qin Wenyan stared at Mo Feng as he asked. "Long spear." Mo Feng replied. Qin Wenyan nodded. An instant later, a resplendent silver-white long spear appeared in his hands. He passed it over to Mo Feng as he spoke. "Don't rely too much on divine weapons. Only use them when your life is at stake." Mo Feng received it as he nodded his head in agitation. In the Mo residence, Mo Qingqing still had many sisters from the clan. It was just that because of their age and personality, none of them came forward to ask Qin Wenyan for a greeting gift. Mo Yu was more lively, and Mo Feng had always admired Qin Wenyan since young. "Wenyan, if there's an opportunity, guide these disappointing fellows in their cultivation." Old man Mo laughed. "Your cultivation base should have long broken through to the heavenly dipper realm, right?" Old man Mo had no way to see through Qin Wenyan's cultivation base. "MHM." Qin Wenyan faintly nodded his head, his words causing the hearts of everyone in the Mo residence to tremble. Such a young Heavenly Dipper realm cultivator was simply too terrifying. Qingqing has also broken through to the Heavenly Dipper realm for many years. Not only that, Qingqing's alchemy skills are even higher compared to her cultivation base. She is also revered by tens of thousands of people outside. Qin Wendian laughed. He wasn't trying to show off. At the very least, he wanted them to understand Mo Qingqing's current status and weight. He wanted them to weigh the consequences of their actions and not create any unhappy events. And indeed, after hearing Qin Wendian's words, the countenances of everyone in the Mo residence changed. How many years has it been since she broke through to the Heavenly Dipper realm? Her alchemy skills were even higher compared to her cultivation base? It was impossible for them to imagine what sort of status Mo Qingqing had in the outside world. They didn't even dare to think about it. If they relied purely on their imagination, they would never be able to imagine such heights. After knowing the strength of Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing, the banquet was a joyous one. No one said anything unpleasant, and Old Man Mo was truly remorseful. Qin Wendian's final grudge vanished like smoke in thin air, and he truly treated Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing's parents as his own elders. Old Man Mo drank a little too much, and he even took the initiative to say that he wanted to go to Sky Harmony City to fetch his in-laws, Qin Wendian, to discuss the marriage between Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing. This caused Qin Wendian to be speechless. He hadn't returned home for such a long time. He naturally had to go to Sky Harmony City himself. Not only that, with Qin Wendian's current strength, it wouldn't take him too long to travel from the royal capital of Chu to Sky Harmony City. After the banquet, Qin Wendian bade farewell and headed towards Sky Harmony City. Mo Qingqing initially wanted to tag along, but Qin Wendian told her to stay at home to accompany his parents. He could see the feelings Mo Qingqing had for her parents, and how could he bear to bring her away after they had just reunited for such a short period of time? When they saw Qin Wendian riding on his flying sword, disappearing from their vision in an instant, the people of the Mo residence completely believed Qin Wendian's words. That kind of speed was impossible for Old Man Mo to possess. They were all thinking, this young man whose name shook the entire Chu country back then, what cultivation level had he reached now? Maybe they could ask Mo Qingqing about it. However, no matter how much they imagined, they would never be able to imagine the grandeur of Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing's wedding. Even if they saw it with their own eyes, they didn't dare to imagine what level it was. Sky Harmony City hadn't changed much. The emperor had long since bestowed Sky Harmony City to the Wu King. The Wu King Manor, which was also known as the Qin Residence, had absolute authority in this city. However, everyone understood that back then, Old Master Qin wanted to seize control of the world. It was only because Old Master Qin's schemes were too deep, to the point where he even included his own descendants in his schemes. This was the reason why Qin Wendian ultimately chose Chu Wei instead of the Wu King. After that, Old Man Qin no longer cared about the affairs of Chu and went out to roam the world. Maybe it was because of the guilt he felt towards his descendants, but he never returned. The title of the Wu King was inherited by Qin Chuan before he left. Hence, the current ruler of the Wu King Manor was none other than Qin Chuan. Today, in the Wu King Manor, Qin Chuan was playing chess with a white-haired old man. The body of the white-haired old man seemed to be somewhat weak, as he coughed occasionally. However, a gentle and refined smile could be seen on his face. "Father, please take some medicine." A beautiful lady at the side passed a cup of tea to the white-haired old man. The old man took the cup and drank a mouthful, before coughing a few times and shaking his head. "My body is weak, I can't be compared to the past. As for you, you are getting more and more healthy. You asked for it. If you didn't do those things back then, how would you be where you are now? Who knows, you might even be full of vigor and have many children and grandchildren." Qin Chuan grumbled. "Stop scolding me. Didn't I suffer retribution? You old man, why do you say that every time we play chess, it's interesting? Are you trying to take revenge on me?" The white-haired old man sighed. Qin Chuan also sighed as he asked, "Is there still no news of Bai Qin?" "Nope, there's no news at all." The white-haired old man felt pain in his heart. Of his two daughters, The eldest was delayed by him, and the second was driven away by him. Later on, although he woke up to reality, things had already changed. This white-haired old man was none other than Bai Qingsong. Uncle Bai, don't think too much. Bai Qing is so kind, she will definitely be fine. A beautiful lady beside Qin Chuan gently spoke. This lady was none other than Qin Yao. Although Qin Yao also hated Bai Qingsong in the past, Qin Wenyan had already forgiven him. Not only that, Bai Qingsong had already changed his ways. Back then, when he came to Sky Harmony City, he visited Qin Wenyan 7 times to apologize. Even Qin Chuan was touched by his sincerity. Let's hope so. Bai Qing and Wenyan are so close, sigh. Bai Qingsong shook his head unceasingly. Uncle Bai, don't worry. I also believe that nothing will happen to Bai Qing. A voice drifted over, causing the countenances of Bai Qingsong and Qin Chuan to stiffen. After which, a silhouette slowly descended from the air. This silhouette was clad in white, and was incomparably handsome, exuding an extraordinary aura. The gazes of the 4 people below froze as they stared dumbfoundedly at the silhouette of the young man. Qin Wenyan stood on the ground, staring at the 4 people in front of him. His heart was filled with a myriad of emotions. His foster father's spirit wasn't bad, but he had aged a little. As for Bai Qingsong, what made Qin Wenyan sigh the most was that Bai Qingsong had actually aged so much, resembling an old man past his prime. Most probably, Bai Qingsong had suffered many torments during these years. Qin Yao was still as beautiful as ever, and seemed even more mature than before. Looking at Qin Wenyan, her eyes turned red as tears flowed down her cheeks. As for Autumn Snow, she stared at Qin Wenyan in a daze. Her mind was in a mess, and when she saw Qin Wenyan again, she couldn't help but feel nervous in her heart. The youth of the past had already grown to such an extent. Most probably, he was already a dragon amongst humans. You brat, to think that you could still bear to return. Qin Yao cursed in a low voice, causing Qin Wenyan to tremble as he smiled. Sister Qin Yao. Father. Qin Wenyan bowed. Qin Chuan and Qin Yao both replied in a heavy tone. After which, the 3 of them exchanged glances and laughed as they walked towards each other, tightly hugging each other. Chapter 652. Qin Chuan and Qin Yao hugged him tightly, as they patted Qin Wenyan's back repeatedly. It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. Father, your son is unfilial. It's been so many years and I haven't returned home to visit. Qin Wenyan felt a tinge of guilt in his heart. You need to pursue the path of cultivation outside. Everything is fine at home, there's nothing to worry about. Qin Chuan loosened his grip on Qin Wenyan, but Qin Yao still couldn't bear to let him go. She hugged Qin Wenyan tightly. Sister, let me see if you're heavier. Qin Wenyan lowered his head and stared at Qin Yao's teary eyes. Qin Yao let out a soft cry as he carried her up, causing Qin Yao to glare at him fiercely, but she still had a happy smile on her face. Sister, you're still so slim. Seems like there's no pressure carrying you on my back. Qin Wenyan teased. After placing Qin Yao down, he asked, Did you find me a brother-in-law? Screw you, you're teasing me the moment you return. My younger brother is so outstanding, how could I possibly be interested in ordinary people? As for you, tell me honestly, did you bring any girls back? Qin Yao pointed her finger at Qin Wenyan. Although the 2 of them hadn't seen each other for 10 years, they were still as close as ever. Some feelings wouldn't fade with the passage of time, and this was the case for Qin Wenyan and Qin Yao. The moment they saw each other, it was as though they were pulled back to the past. Back then, they were still young, laughing and chatting happily. Back then, they were carefree and carefree. I brought back a sister-in-law for you. This time around, I still need father to help me propose a marriage. Qin Wenyan laughed. Really? Qin Yao froze. Wenyan, are you serious? Qin Chuan exclaimed in shock. Father, sister, there's no need to doubt me so much, right? Qin Wenyan shrugged his shoulders. Where is she from? Why didn't you bring her to the Qin residence as a guest? Qin Chuan asked. She just returned to Chu. Initially, she wanted to come with me, but I told her to spend some time with her family. Qin Wendian replied. People from Chu. Qin Chuan and Qin Yao spoke at the same time. The two of them exchanged glances, only to hear Qin Yao laughing. What a good fellow. Speak, was she the #1 beauty of our Chu country, Mo Qingqing? Sister, you're too smart. Qin Wenyan smiled as he admitted, causing Qin Chuan to burst out in laughter. Good, I knew you would win her back sooner or later. Looks like you've succeeded. When do you want to propose a marriage? Just tell me, I'll get the entire Qin clan to act. Father, there's no need to be so exaggerated. Qin Wenyan shook his head and smiled bitterly. Letting Qin Chuan propose the marriage was also out of respect for the elders of both sides. Qin Wendian hoped that the wedding would be as perfect as possible. At the side, when Bai Qingsong and Autumn Snow heard the news of Qin Wentian's wedding, they couldn't help but feel a myriad of emotions in their hearts. Even Autumn Snow's eyes dimmed slightly. Back then, she was the chosen of the Sky Harmony City, and had the opportunity to marry into the Yi clan. Hence, she ended her relationship with Qin Wenyan. However, only after 10+ years had passed did she realize how narrow their vision was. Time could really change many things. Back then they only saw the Chu country. But to the current Qin Wenyan, the entire Grand Xia was no longer able to restrict him. Wenyan, congratulations. Although Bai Qingsong sighed in his heart, he still gave his blessings. Thank you, Uncle Bai. Qin Wenyan nodded his head to Bai Qingsong before turning to Autumn Snow. Are you doing well? Seeing the bright eyes of Qin Wenyan, smiling at her, Autumn Snow's eyes flashed with a hint of panic. She didn't dare to look at Qin Wendian in the eyes, and lightly nodded her head. The current Autumn Snow was no longer the young lady of the past, but her countenance was still as beautiful as before, with hints of maturity. Autumn Snow, has father not finished playing chess yet? A voice drifted over, and after which, a young man around 30 years of age walked into the courtyard. This person froze when he saw the handsome silhouette in front of Autumn Snow. After which, he walked to the side of Autumn Snow and lightly hugged her arm. Although there was a smile on his face, Qin Wenyan could faintly sense the enmity in the eyes of this person. Autumn Snow's body stiffened as she unexpectedly shifted to the side. Although she no longer had any relationship with Qin Wenyan, when facing him, her heart was still as calm as still water. Autumn Snow, what's wrong? The young man gently asked. Nothing. Autumn Snow shook her head. A strange light flashed in the eyes of the young man as he smiled at Qin Wendian. Nice to meet you, I am Bu Shao from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Autumn Snow is my fiancé. I am Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian naturally understood where this person's enmity came from. He casually smiled. I'm friends with Autumn Snow. Uncle Bai, Autumn Snow, congratulations. Qin Wendian gave his blessings. Autumn Snow lowered her head. Her heart was filled with complicated emotions. Bai Qingsong glanced at Bu Shao, before glancing at Qin Wenyan. Although there was a smile on his face, he sighed in his heart. The Green Cloud Imperial Empire? Although the Green Cloud Imperial Empire governed 10 countries, and was a subsidiary power of the Green Cloud Pavilion, Bai Qingsong knew the reason why the 9 Mystical Palace was destroyed. Even if the Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire knew of Qin Wentian's identity, he wouldn't dare to show any disrespect. Brother Qin is the son of the Wu King? Bu Shao asked. Qin Wendian nodded his head, causing a smile to appear on Bu Zhao's face. A mere son of the Wu King of the Sky Harmony City, he truly had no idea why Autumn Snow would have such feelings for him. Currently, the Chu country is a subsidiary country of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. If Brother Qin is interested in expanding your horizons, I can arrange an official position for Brother Qin in the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Bu Shao smiled, his words causing the others to be stunned. This Bu Shao was actually intentionally showing off in front of Qin Wenyan. Many thanks for Brother Bu's kind intentions, but I, Qin, don't need it. Qin Wendian smiled and shook his head. Bu Shao sighed, what a pity. All right, Brother Qin, let's play this game of chess again next time. I shall return first. At this moment, in order to avoid any awkwardness, Bai Qingsong took the initiative to bid his farewell. Who is this Bushao? Qin Wendian stared at Qin Chuan as he asked. He's a young general of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire stationed in the Chu country. His father is a general of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, and now that the Green Cloud Imperial Empire is in control of the subsidiary countries of the 9 Mystical Palace, their control over the 10 countries is already clear on the surface. Qin Chuan shook his head. He couldn't be bothered with this matter. Qin Wendian frowned when he heard this. Back then, when he allied with the Green Cloud Pavilion, the 9 Mystical Palace was purged from the Chu country. After that, he didn't mind that the Green Cloud Pavilion controlled the subsidiary powers of the 9 Mystical Palace, but the Green Cloud Pavilion should know that his home was in Chu. Why didn't they inform the Green Cloud Imperial Empire about this? Let's hope he was overthinking things. Wenyan, how have you been living these years outside? Quickly tell me about it. Qin Yao hugged onto Qin Wentian's arm as she smiled. Sis, you are still as clingy as ever. Qin Wendian teased. Let me pay my respects to my mother and uncle first. Nichum, that's only natural. Let's talk while we walk. I will ask my mother to prepare a feast for you. Qin Yao hugged Qin Wenyan as she hopped and skipped along. Her long hair was resting on Qin Wentian's shoulder. Qin Chuan followed behind the two of them, and upon seeing the relationship between this pair of siblings, he couldn't help but smile and shake his head. His heart was filled with warmth. We are a family now. It's time for us to have a reunion dinner. Qin Chuan clasped his hands behind his back as he hummed a little tune. It has been a long time since he was so happy. Qin Chuan's courtyard was naturally bustling with noise and excitement today. However, those who came were all his close relatives. Qin Chuan, Qin He, Qin Yi, the whole family gathered together. Of course, Qin Shang and Qin Ji came as well. They were now married, and Qin Shang even had a daughter named Qin Xan, who was 6 years old. Back then during the chaos in Chu, Qin He and Qin Yi were both injured. They hoped that their children would be able to have a descendant as soon as possible. Qin He was the first one to hug his granddaughter. Xener, quickly call him uncle. Qin Wendian hugged Qin Xen while Qin Yao teased her. Qin Xen was very beautiful, resembling a porcelain doll. Uncle! Qin Xian's childish voice rang out, causing Qin Wendian to laugh happily as he pinched her cheeks. Qin Yao, who was at the side, was dumbfounded as she spoke. Back then you treated me so well, and now you don't even want to spare your niece? This is called doting, do you understand? Qin Wendian teased. Qin Yao rolled her eyes. A younger brother was doting on his older sister? Uncle, why hasn't Xianer seen you before? Qin Xan hooked her arms around Qin Wentian's neck, as though she was very fond of this uncle whom she met for the first time. This uncle's eyes were truly very beautiful, even cleaner and more beautiful than her parents' eyes. Uncle went to a very faraway place and only returned today. Qin Wendian smiled. Is that so? Is it fun to go to a faraway place? Qin Xian's eyes gleamed with a bright light, filled with curiosity. Of course it's fun. In that case, can Uncle bring Xener there to play as well? Sure, Uncle will bring Xener there to play. Qin Wendian stared at the innocent Qin Xen as warmth filled his heart. He smiled. Big bro Qin Shang, you are truly blessed. You should also give birth to a child soon. Wendian, you are going to marry the number 1 beauty of Chu, Mo Qingqing. If the two of you give birth to a daughter, I can't even imagine how beautiful she would be. Qin Shang had already matured. Looking at Qin Wentian's demeanor, he knew that given Qin Wentian's talent, he had already achieved great things. It's still too early for me. Qin Wendian shook his head and smiled. He also liked Qin Xan, but if he had a child, he would have something to worry about. If he were to roam the world outside, he wouldn't have such a mentality now. Brother Qin Shang, I wish to bring Xener to play in the royal capital of Chu. Is it possible? Qin Wendian laughed. Xener is still so young, would she not be used to it? Qin Yao's wife was very young, around 25 to 26 years of age. Mother, Xener likes uncle, it's fine. Qin Xen sat on Qin Wentian's lap, appearing very intimate. Naturally. Xaner, you can play with Uncle Wenyan. You are not allowed to cry. He glanced at Qin Shang. If Qin Wenyan wanted to bring Qin Xen out to play, how could he mistreat Qin Xen? Wenyan, this little fellow is very mischievous. If you are annoyed, just send her back. Qin Shang squeezed his wife's hand, hinting for her not to say anything. His wife also seemed to have realized that this young man she met for the first time had an extraordinary status in the Qin clan. Hence, she reluctantly nodded her head, feeling a little reluctant to part with her daughter. After all, to her, Qin Wenyan was just a stranger. It was normal for her to be worried. This was something that Qin Wenyan could understand. As to why he wanted to bring Qin Xian out to play, it was actually because he wanted Qingqing's help to change Qin Xian's physique. Qin Xen was still so young, and her meridians had yet to be formed. It was the easiest way to change her physique. Back then when the Yi clan brought people to the Sky Harmony City to hunt him down, he had taken his place to face danger. That back view was something that Qin Wenyan would never be able to forget. He had to repay this debt no matter what. Not only that, he himself also liked this child, Xen. Chapter 653. The entire family happily ate together. This meal was extremely sumptuous, and although it wasn't made from herbs or demonic beasts, it was still the most delicious meal Qin Wenyan had in recent years. The feeling of being able to dine together with his family after being separated for over 10 years was something that couldn't be experienced in the outside world. Qin Wenyan, who was inside the Qin residence, felt as though his entire body was relaxed from the depths of his heart. He listened to Qin Shang and Qin Ji discussing their cultivation trends, as well as their love experiences, while a warm smile hung on his face. Occasionally he would interject a few sentences, but it didn't matter. Everyone else also wanted to hear about Qin Wentian's experiences. Qin Wenyan told them about it, causing all of them to sigh with emotion. The outside world was actually so vast. Grand Xia was referred to as the desolate land of desolation by outsiders, and out of the three empires, Grand Xia was the weakest, so weak that it was pitifully pitiful. The Grand Zhou Empire and Grand Shang Empire were subsidiary empires of the Royal Sacred Sect. In the various regions of the Royal Sacred Region, there were countless major and minor transcendent powers. There were also many ancient sects and ancient empires that had existed for tens of thousands of years. Any one of them could easily destroy the entire Grand Xia Empire. Just a single official from one of those ancient empires could trample the Green Cloud Imperial Empire into ashes. In that case, wouldn't it be extremely difficult to live in the Royal Sacred Region? Mother Qin picked up some food for Qin Wenyan, her heart tightened as she listened. There were so many major powers in the Royal Sacred Region, yet Qin Wenyan had to roam the outside world alone. How difficult must it be? It's indeed very difficult. Qin Wenyan nodded. It truly wasn't easy for him to reach where he was today. Wenyan, take it slow. The outside world is too vast, let's take it step by step. Maybe in the future, you would be able to join a major power or become a marquis of an ancient country. Qin Shang consoled upon seeing Qin Wenyan nodding his head. Qin Wenyan started before smiling and nodding his head. In front of the Qin clan, there was no need for Qin Wenyan to show off. When I grow up, I want to explore the world with Uncle. Little Qin Xian's tender voice rang out, causing everyone to laugh. Only to see Qin Wenyan pinching little Qin Xian's cheeks as he spoke. Good, when you grow up, you will definitely become a heroine whose name will shake the heavens. Qin Xen nodded her head, causing everyone to burst into laughter. Wenyan, there are only 2 more months until the end of the year. After the yearly sacrifice, on the first day of the new year, how about we set the date of our wedding? Qin Chuan asked. As you wish, father. Qin Wenyan nodded with a smile. Okay. 3 days later, I will bring some men to the Mo residence in the royal capital to propose marriage. There's no need for you to handle these matters. Have a good rest. Qin Chuan stated. Qin Wenyan naturally wouldn't have any objections. After the banquet, Everyone chatted until late at night before dispersing. After everyone left, Qin Chuan and his wife, Qin Yao and Qin Wenyin chatted for a long time before Qin Chuan and his wife returned to their room. They then spoke to Qin Wenyin and Qin Yao. You two should rest early as well. Got it, I will accompany Wenyin for a while. Qin Yao smiled mischievously. I know you two have a good relationship. Qin Chuan's mother laughed as the two of them left. Qin Wenyin and Qin Yao sat down on the grass in the courtyard. The starlight in the sky seemed to contain traces of warmth. Tell me honestly, how many things have you not told me yet? Qin Yao stared at Qin Wenyin as though she was interrogating him. Don't tell me you want me to tell you everything that happened in the past 10 years? Qin Wenyin felt somewhat depressed. Tell me your cultivation base first. Qin Yao's lips twitched. She wouldn't let this fellow off so easily. Peak of Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wenyin shrugged. Although Qin Yao was long prepared, her body still trembled involuntarily. In the past, Heavenly Dipper sovereigns were the stuff of legends in Chu. But now, Qin Wenyin had stepped into the peak of Heavenly Dipper at the age of 28. Qin Yao had no way to comprehend what level this was. What about sex? Since you and Mo Qingqing met outside, you must have joined sex before, right? Qin Yao's beautiful eyes flickered with a strange light. In the past, I joined the Battle Sword sect, one of the 9 great sects under the Royal Sacred Sect. But after that, because of some friction between me and the Royal Sacred Sect, I decided to withdraw from the Battle Sword sect, Qin Wenyin honestly replied. The Royal Sacred Sect? The hegemon of the boundless region you spoke of? Qin Yao's eyes widened. Qin Wenyin nodded his head. Did you manage to escape back here? Qin Yao mumbled. Qin Wenyin rolled his eyes. No, there were some seniors who helped me to control the situation. One of them was none other than Qingqing's master, a power named the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Qingqing is the personal disciple of the Medicine Sovereign, the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, and a 5th-ranked alchemist. Her status in the world of alchemy is equivalent to a celestial phenomenon ascendant in the martial world. Qin Yao blinked her eyes. In the darkness of the night, her beautiful eyes were exceptionally bright. However, she didn't know how to describe the shock she felt in her heart. She opened her mouth a few times, but eventually, she sighed softly as a look of sadness flashed in her eyes. What's wrong? Qin Wenyin asked as he noticed the look in Qin Yao's eyes. Qin Yao shook her head lightly. She hugged Qin Wentian's arm as she leaned against Qin Wenyin, resting her head on Qin Wentian's shoulder. She didn't say anything, quietly enjoying the tranquility of this moment. Wenyin, am I very useless? Qin Yao murmured, her mood was somewhat weak. Qin Wenyin and Mo Qingqing had already walked so far away from each other. Although she was happy for them, when she thought of the distance between her and Wenyin getting bigger and bigger, she couldn't help but feel an indescribable pain in her heart. 10 years had passed since they parted. What about the next time they parted? How can that be? My sister Qin Yao is intelligent and beautiful, good at understanding others. If there's a next life, I will definitely want you to be my sister. Qin Wenyin stared at the starry sky as he gently spoke. Really? Qin Yao turned her eyes over, as her immeasurably deep eyes stared at Qin Wenyin. Of course. Qin Wenyin nodded his head. Qin Yao's eyes flashed with a light smile as she hugged Qin Wenyin even tighter. She gently spoke. Tonight, you will accompany me here, just like when we were young, and we will count the stars together. Okay, let's count the stars. Qin Wenyin laughed. The two of them lay on the grass, staring at the starry sky. The early morning sunlight cascaded down onto the lands of Chu. In the royal capital of Chu, the Mo residence was still rather quiet. However, outside the Mo residence, numerous horses pulling a dragon carriage could be seen galloping over. Beside the dragon carriage, there were many powerful guards. The guards of the Mo residence all felt their hearts trembling. Could this be someone from the royal clan? At this moment, a young man with an extraordinary demeanor walked out from the dragon carriage. This young man didn't exude any aura, yet his aura was extremely natural, exuding the aura of a king. He was cultured and refined, yet didn't lose his majesty. The crown on his head made him seem even more extraordinary. "We pay our respects to your majesty." The guards of the Mo residence all knelt on one knee as their hearts trembled. What was going on today? The emperor of Chu Wei, actually personally came to the Mo residence. "Rise." Chu Wei gently spoke. "I heard that Qin Wenyan has returned. Help me inform him that Chu Wei is here to pay a visit." "Yes, your majesty." The guards of the Mo residence all felt their hearts trembling. How much face did their new son-in-law have? The emperor of Chu actually personally came to pay a visit. In the entire Chu country, only their son-in-law would receive such treatment. Seems like the rumor circulating in the Mo residence yesterday was true. Back then when Chu Wei ascended to the emperor's position, it was because their son-in-law, Qin Wenyan, gave the nod of approval. Upon thinking of this, the guards couldn't help but feel their backs straightening even more. The atmosphere in the Mo residence grew livelier as many people came to welcome Chu Wei. Even old man Mo personally came. Everyone in the Mo residence was gathered together, feeling shock in their hearts. Qin Wenyan had just arrived in Chu yesterday, and today, Chu Wei actually came to pay a visit. From this, one could very well imagine how important Qin Wenyan was in Chu Wei's heart. "Your Majesty," Wenyan returned to Sky Harmony City yesterday. He should be heading to the Qin residence. Old man Mo spoke to Chu Wei. "What a coincidence. I heard that Miss Qingqing has also returned. I wonder if it's possible for me to pay a visit?" Chu Wei smiled, appearing extremely polite. "Mo, go and greet your sister Qingqing." Old man Mo spoke. "Right." Mo nodded and left. Old man Mo and Chu Wei continued to chat, and a moment later, Mo returned. A strange expression appeared on her face as she spoke to Chu Wei. Sister Qingqing said that she wishes to rest. Actually, Mo Qingqing's original words weren't as such. When Mo went to inform Mo Qingqing merely replied that she didn't wish to meet with outsiders. It wasn't that Mo Qingqing was rude, it was just that her personality was like this. She wasn't willing to deal with people unrelated to her. Even if it was the emperor, she wasn't very familiar with Chu Wei. Those beside Chu Wei all had expressions of unhappiness on their faces, and there were even a few who frowned. However, they only heard Chu Wei laughing. "Fine, I will pay a visit another day." After speaking, he bid his farewell. Old man Mo personally sent them off, and on the way back, Chu Wei's guards unhappily stated, "Your Majesty, the Mo clan is too rude." "Impudent." Chu Wei faintly spoke. He glanced at the guard who spoke as he continued, "Remember, for those who are related to Qin Wenyan, no matter what they do, you are not to interfere." The guard's heart trembled. He didn't dare to say anything more. Chu Wei's countenance was as calm as ever. There were no fluctuations in his heart. Qin Wenyan, the top ranker of the immortal martial realm, his name shook the entire royal sacred region. Among the younger generation, there was no one who could contend against him. Mo Qingqing, the holy maiden of the medicine sovereign valley. This was what Chu Mang told Chu Wei. Chu Mang initially wanted to come with him today, but Chu Wei didn't allow it. He came here because he wanted to discuss a matter with Qin Wenyan and ask for Qin Wentian's opinion. He had no other intentions. Chu Wei didn't come at the right time. Not long after he left, Qin Wenyan arrived at the Qin residence, bringing little Qin Xan along with him. "Brother-in-law, whose child is this? She's so adorable." Mo hopped and skipped over to Qin Wentian's side. Her slender and elegant figure was filled with the vigor of youth. "She's my niece, I brought her here to play." Qin Wentian laughed, rubbing Mo's head. This lass's mouth was so sweet, calling him brother-in-law, brother-in-law. She was so sensible. "Brother-in-law, I'm not a little girl." Mo's lips twitched. "More or less." Mo Feng's voice drifted over. He stared at Qin Wenyan and called out, "Brother-in-law." "Why, are you going out?" Qin Wenyan asked when he saw Mo Feng walking out. Mo Feng nodded his head, his gaze evasive as he spoke, "Brother-in-law, I'm going out for a walk. You can go and chat with Sis Qingqing." After speaking, he immediately slipped away. Mou giggled as she mysteriously added, "Brother-in-law, do you believe that Mo Feng went on a date?" "Believe? Which clan's girl is she from?" Qin Wendian laughed. "I don't know." Mou shook her head. "But I've met that girl before. She's like a princess, very quiet and elegant, even more beautiful than me. Mo Feng has a crush on someone else, but this fellow is too shy and didn't dare to confess. It seems that the girl is about to leave, and that's why Mo Feng mustered his courage to meet someone else. Who knows, maybe he will confess today. Don't tell me you even found out the location of the date?" Qin Wenin involuntarily rolled his eyes when he saw the crafty light in Mou's eyes. Of course. Mou's eyes flickered as she contemplated Qin Wenin. Today, even the Emperor of Chu had come to pay a visit to her brother-in-law. That little girl's status was extraordinary as well, and the guards around her were all extremely powerful. Even her father wanted Mo Feng to give up. Since her brother-in-law was so powerful, if she dragged him along, would he be able to boost Mo Feng's courage? "Brother-in-law, wait for me. I will go call Sis Qingqing, let's go out for a walk." As she thought of this, that last Mou slipped away. Qin Wenin stood there as he laughed involuntarily. This lass actually had her eyes on him. However, he also liked that little fellow Mo Feng. This caused him to recall himself back then. Over 10 years ago, wasn't he secretly in love with Mo Qingqing? Now that they were finally together, Mo Feng's love had just started. This was like a reincarnation cycle. As he thought of this, a warm smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he pinched Qin Xian's cheeks. "Let's go and watch elder brother chase after that girl, okay? Xian will listen to uncle." Qin Xian gently spoke. Along the way, Qin Wenyan brought her along as they soared through the air. This lass didn't cry nor did she throw a tantrum. She simply hugged onto Qin Wenyan tightly, appearing extremely obedient. Chapter 654. Mou and Mo Qingqing arrived together. Little rascal followed behind Mo Qingqing, wagging its tail. When it saw Xian in Qin Wentian's embrace, its eyes brightened. At this moment, little Xian was contemplating Mo Qingqing. Her eyes blinked as her mouth opened slightly. "Elder sister, are you a fairy?" Mo Qingqing was stunned for a moment before she smiled sweetly. The words of a child were simple and honest. For such a young girl to say that she was a fairy, it definitely wasn't some flattering words. "Can elder sister hug you?" Mo Qingqing smiled. "Okay." Little Xian opened her arms and was embraced by Mo Qingqing. She hugged Mo Qingqing's neck tightly as her innocent and adorable eyes stared at the fairy in front of her. "Okay, I'm the uncle and you are the elder sister?" Qin Wenin was extremely depressed. "Brother-in-law, don't be sad. Why don't I hug you?" Mou stretched out her arms, indicating that she wanted to console Qin Wenin. Qin Wenin rolled his eyes and glared at her, causing Mou to smile mischievously. Stepping forward, Mou pulled Mo Qingqing with her left hand and hugged Qin Wentian's arm with her right hand as she hopped forward. "Let's go and see how that fellow Mo Feng is chasing after girls." In the royal capital, there was an inn that was extremely elegant and unique. This inn was built 2 years ago and was located in the best location in the royal capital. The interior of the inn was elegant yet not luxurious, it was simple yet filled with warmth. The name of this inn was the Drunken Wine Inn. There were many types of wine here and the prices were all ridiculously high. However, there was a strange rule. As long as you got drunk in the Drunken Wine Inn, all the wine you drank and the food you ate would be free. Hence, there were 2 types of people that frequented the Drunken Wine Inn. One type didn't care about the price of the wine, and the other type were alcoholics that loved wine as much as their lives. Drunken Wine Inn. When Qin Wendian saw the name of the inn, a faint smile appeared on his face. Especially after he heard Mou mention the rules of this inn, his lips curled up in a strange smile. The owner of this inn, could it be that he was none other than that fellow? The Drunken Wine Inn was extremely large and had 3 levels. The wine on the 3rd level was the most expensive and the rooms were separated by a curtain of beads. Qin Wendian and the others arrived at a private room. Separated by a beaded curtain, they could see two silhouettes in the room next door. It was a young man and a young woman. The young man was exceedingly handsome, and the childishness between his brows had yet to fade away. The young woman was dignified and elegant, clad in a white dress, giving off a feeling of purity and gentleness. Her eyes were bright and beautiful, causing people to involuntarily like her. Qin Wenin and Emo Qingqing were all very quiet, but a smile could be seen on their faces. Emo Feng's judgment wasn't bad. However, Qin Wenin felt that Emo Feng's relationship wouldn't be so smooth sailing. In another private room, there were a few silhouettes sitting there. Two of them actually had a cultivation base at the Heavenly Dipper realm. Their attention was focused on the young girl opposite Emo Feng. Evidently, they were her protectors. With a Heavenly Dipper sovereign acting as her personal bodyguard, this woman was definitely not someone from Chu. It was very likely that she came from the Qingzhou continent. Are you really leaving? Can't you stay behind? Emo Feng's voice rang out. His gaze was filled with reluctance when he stared at the young girl. The young girl nodded and said in a clear and gentle voice, "Why should I stay?" Disappointment flashed in Emo Feng's eyes as he spoke in a low voice. "Yeah, why did you stay behind?" "Idiot, hurry up and say it's because you want her to stay. You're too stupid." Emo Yu mumbled in a low voice. She was even more anxious than Emo Feng. That fellow truly didn't understand the thoughts of girls at all. "But, if I still wish to see you in the future, where should I go to find you?" Emo Feng summoned his courage and asked. "Qingzhou City. I live in Qingzhou City. If you want to see me in the future, come to Qingzhou City to find me," the girl said gently. "Sure, in the future I will go to the Qing continent to look for you. You won't leave the Qing continent, right?" Emo Feng laughed heartlessly when he heard the young girl telling him where her home was. "No, I'm in a bad mood this time, so I came out to relax. My home is in Qingzhou City. How could I leave?" It's a promise then. In the future, I will go to the Qing continent to look for you. You are not allowed to pretend that you don't know me." Emo Feng's mood relaxed a little as he drank a mouthful of wine. Wine could strengthen one's courage, but he still didn't have the guts to confess today. She was too outstanding, causing Emo Feng to feel a sense of inferiority. He didn't dare to say the words hidden in his heart. There's no saving him. Emo Yu was about to go crazy from anxiety. The two people next door fell silent and continued to eat and drink, as though they didn't know what to say. Qin Wenin and Emo Qingqing exchanged glances as they laughed. The emotions of a young man and a young woman were truly simple and honest. "Brother-in-law," Emo Feng clearly said that he likes this girl and came here today to confess. But he actually doesn't dare to do it. What a coward. Emo Yu angrily spoke. Her voice was very loud, causing Qin Wentian's eyes to flicker as he instantly understood Emo Yu's meaning. And as expected, Emo Feng, who was next door, started when he heard Emo Yu's words. After which, his face flushed red as he stared at the young girl opposite him. The beautiful eyes of the young girl also flashed with a hint of panic as well as shyness. However, she didn't lower her head. Although her beautiful eyes were filled with shyness, she still stared at Emo Feng. That limpid gaze of hers caused Emo Feng's heartbeat to quicken. This girl likes Emo Feng. Qin Wenin was almost certain when he saw the look in the young girl's eyes. Brother-in-law is here as well. At this moment, Emo Feng's heart was pounding. Brother-in-law had always been his idol. Back then, wasn't brother-in-law and sis Qingqing not blessed by others? But brother-in-law had never given up and had been searching for them all this while. Now, over 10 years later, he still managed to bring his sister back. As he thought of this, Emo Feng's face turned red from excitement. He stared at the young girl and spoke, "Ling Yu, I like you." The young girl's face turned even redder when she heard this. Even her eyes were red. However, a radiant smile flickered in her eyes as she spoke to Mo Feng. "In that case, you have to work hard." Hearing that the young girl didn't reject him, an expression of excitement appeared on Emo Feng's face. She told him to work hard. This was a form of encouragement. Although Ling Yu didn't directly agree to his courtship, she didn't reject it either. To him, this was already enough. "Do you still want to leave?" Mo Feng asked. Ling Yu's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of disappointment. She nodded her head. My parents wouldn't allow me to stay outside forever. They have already sent people to fetch me. Don't you know how to work hard? In the future, you can come to the Qin continent to look for me. Mo Feng's eyes were filled with resolution. Ling Yu's words were already sufficient. He stared at Ling Yu as his eyes flickered with deep emotions. The smell of alcohol gushed forth as he summoned his courage and asked, Ling Yu, before you leave, can I kiss you? Ling Yu's eyes were red. She glanced to the left and right as her hands tugged on the corners of her robes. She was extremely nervous. A toad lusting after the flesh of a swan. A cold voice filled with mockery rang out. After which, a group of silhouettes walked over, directly pushing open the curtains and barging in. After these people appeared, Ling Yu's guards also appeared in the private room next door, standing not too far away from Ling Yu. Dong Yi, what do you mean by this? Ling Yu stared at the person in the lead. It was a young man around 20 years of age. His face was filled with rage, as well as a hint of mockery as he stared at Mo Feng. Ling Yu, I followed you all the way from the Qin continent all the way to Chu. Do you think my feelings for you are not deep? Who does this man think he is? Is he even qualified to sit together with you? Dong Yi pointed at Mo Feng as he impolitely spoke. Do I need you to care about my matters? Ling Yu's face was filled with rage as she stared at Dong. Fine, I can't care about you, but I can at least care about him. Dong Yi's gaze was as sharp as blades as he stared at Mo Feng. Now, kneel on the ground and say loudly that you are a toad lusting after the flesh of a swan. If you do that, I will pretend that nothing happened today. You are the toad. Mo Yu barged into the private room as she stared at Dong Yi. You have a helper? Dong Yi coldly laughed. Mo Feng, a junior of the Mo residence. I didn't bother with you the past few times, yet you still dared to be so impudent. It's fine if you don't want to kneel today, but I'm afraid not only you, even the Mo residents wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Who are you? What qualifications do you have to threaten me? Mo Feng stared at Dong Yi as he spoke. Mo Feng, you better obediently kneel down. If not, the consequences aren't something your mere Mo residents would be able to bear. Beside Dong Yi, there was another young man. This young man was none other than Qin Wendian, Bu Xiao, whom he met in the Sky Harmony City yesterday. He was Autumn Snow's boyfriend. Mo Feng was acquainted with Bu Xiao. He was someone sent by the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to Chu and had an extraordinary status. Bu Xiao, you even dare to interfere in my matters? Ling Yu's eyes turned cold. I naturally wouldn't dare to interfere in the matters of Miss Ling Yu. However, this Mo Feng truly doesn't know what's good for him, to actually covet Miss Ling Yu. Dong Yi is a guest of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. I naturally have to protect him. Bu Xiao calmly spoke. This Dong Yi was also from the Qin continent and was a disciple of one of the transcendent powers, Misty Peak. Ling Yu glanced at her guard, only to hear Dong Yi staring at Mo Feng with a cold expression as he spoke. Even if Ling Yu stood up for you today, she will be leaving soon. If you don't kneel today, the Mo residents will suffer unimaginable consequences because of you in the future. Do you think you can escape? Dong Yi coldly snorted. Mo Feng's face contorted in agony. The Green Cloud Imperial Empire, Green Cloud Pavilion. So it turned out that Ling Yu was from a transcendent power of the Qin continent. Such a power caused him to feel stifled. He finally understood that Ling Yu liked him, or she would have directly rejected him instead of telling him to work hard. He also finally understood the meaning of the words work hard, and also understood the reason why his father told him to give up. So it turned out that many things weren't as perfect as he had imagined. The commotion here soon alerted the entire inn. Many people turned their gazes over, and even the owner of the inn appeared. It was a young man and he spoke. Everyone, can we find another place to settle our grudges? Immortal drunken wine, even if you are a heavenly dipper sovereign, it's best if you don't interfere in this matter. Bu Xiao faintly spoke, his words causing Mo Feng to feel his entire body turning cold. Weren't they afraid of heavenly dipper sovereigns? For a transcendent power, Heavenly Dipper sovereigns shouldn't amount to anything, right? Mo Feng thought of his brother-in-law and sis Qingqing. He didn't want to implicate them in this matter. Chapter 655. Immortal Drunken Wine had already broken through to Heavenly Dipper, and in addition to his good relationship with Chu Wei, his status in Chu was extremely high. However, Bu Shao didn't give him any face simply because he was someone from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Behind the Green Cloud Imperial Empire stood the Green Cloud Pavilion. Low-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns couldn't be bothered with them. As for Dong Yi, he was a disciple of the Taowu Peak, a transcendent power of the Qingzhou continent. How could he care about a mere Chu country? Hence, when he saw Mo Feng confessing to the woman he liked, Ling Yu, he directly rushed in and mocked Mo Feng for being a toad lusting after the flesh of a swan, wanting Mo Feng to kneel and beg for mercy. If Mo Feng didn't kneel today, Dong Yi would cause the entire Mo residence to suffer a calamity. Immortal Drunken Wine's countenance turned extremely unsightly. A beautiful maiden appeared beside him. She was none other than a teacher from the Emperor Star Academy, Mu Rou. She came to Immortal Drunken Wine's residence today, but she didn't expect to encounter such a thing. The people of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire were getting more and more overbearing. Right now, the status of the nobility in Chu was extremely low because the Green Cloud Imperial Army was stationed in the royal capital of Chu. Mo Feng was so angry that his entire body was trembling. A long spear appeared in his hands. This was the spear Qin Wendian gave him. Dong Yi's threat to him was something he couldn't endure, but he was also afraid of implicating the Mo residents, sister Qingqing, brother-in-law, and Mo Yu. The matters here have nothing to do with my family. It's just that I like Ling Yu. I won't kneel to you. If you are a man, don't implicate my family. I'll fight you to the death. Mo Feng pointed his spear at Dong Yi. Mo Feng, leave. Ling Yu turned her head and spoke to Mo Feng. Fight against Dong Yi? Mo Feng was simply courting death. I won't leave. Mo Feng shook his head. Dong Yi stared at him as a mocking smile appeared on his face. You are not qualified to fight against me. Since you won't kneel, who will make him kneel? As the sound of Dong Yi's voice faded, a silhouette dashed towards Mo Feng. This silhouette was a Yuanfu cultivator. His palms blasted out as a gigantic palm imprint descended from the air, exuding a terrifying might. Mo Feng gripped his long spear tightly, infusing his astral energy into it. After which, he stabbed his long spear towards the incoming Yuanfu cultivator. He closed his eyes. He knew that he wasn't a match for his opponent. Bzz. A resplendent beam of light shot out from the spear as a terrifying aura directly shattered the palm imprint. After which, the spear penetrated through the head of the figure in the air. That person's face turned ashen as he fell to the ground. This sudden scene caused everyone to be stunned. Mo Feng also stared at the long spear in his hands as his body trembled. This was not his own strength, but the power of the divine weapon spear. This spear was so strong. Dong Yi furrowed his brows as he spoke to the person beside him. You go. That person nodded his head and stepped out, pressing towards Mo Feng. A terrifying fiery aura bore down on Mo Feng. At this instant, he gripped the long spear tightly as he channeled his astral energy into it. He could faintly sense that his astral energy was able to activate the runic patterns within the long spear as an unprecedented strength flooded his entire body, causing Mo Feng to feel an overwhelming sense of power. Bzz. Stepping out, Mo Feng stabbed out with his long spear once again. Another dazzling beam of light shot out. This time it was a beam of silver light that contained the power to penetrate through everything. In just an instant, that expert who was still walking forward was already penetrated by that beam of silver light, causing him to collapse onto the ground. The long spear brother-in-law gifted to me. Mo Feng was completely dumbfounded, staring at the silver spear in his hands in a daze. What a powerful divine weapon! Mu Rou exclaimed in shock. Upon seeing this divine weapon, she once again recalled that extraordinary young genius from back then. That genius with terrifying attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions was the one who changed her destiny. Ling Yu's beautiful eyes were also filled with shock. She stared at Mo Feng as she asked, Mo Feng, your divine spear? It was gifted to me by my brother-in-law. Mo Feng replied, his words causing Ling Yu to be stunned. Mo Feng's brother-in-law? A strange light flashed in Dong Yi's eyes. He glanced at an old man beside him. The eyes of this old man gleamed with sharpness as he spoke, Let me go retrieve it. After speaking, the old man stepped out. Instantly, a stifling pressure bore down on Mo Feng. With a single step, Dong Yi's body was directly crushed to the ground. He couldn't even lift the long spear in his hands. This old man was at the Heavenly Dipper realm. The disparity between their strength was simply too great. Just the pressure from his aura alone was enough to make Mo Feng unable to withstand it. Stay your hand. Ling Yu berated, only to see the old man snorting coldly. After which, a long vine whizzed out, directly coiling around the divine weapon, instantly pulling it over to Ling Yu. The old man held the long spear in his hands as he turned his head and spoke to Dong Yi, It's a fourth-ranked divine weapon. The hearts of everyone trembled. A fourth-ranked divine weapon? A junior of Chu actually had a fourth-ranked divine weapon? Mo Feng, are you alright? Ling Yu walked to Mo Feng's side and helped him up. Mo Feng smiled bitterly as he spoke to Ling Yu, Ling Yu, maybe I won't be able to find you in the future. That won't happen. Ling Yu shook her head. With me here, I won't allow them to touch you. Mo Feng bitterly shook his head. With the Mo clan around, it was impossible for him to flee alone. Offending the Green Cloud Imperial Empire would only be a calamity to the Mo clan. In the room next door, Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing hadn't acted yet. It wasn't that they didn't want to act, but rather, Qin Wendian felt that Mo Feng's future path was still very long. If he wanted to pursue Ling Yu, he would have to depend on himself. Qin Wendian could help him and even allow him to marry Ling Yu. But if Mo Feng didn't have the capability, he would still face pain and pressure in the future. Letting him feel the pressure was good as well. This would be beneficial to his growth. As a man, Mo Feng couldn't grow up in a greenhouse. However, Mo Feng's performance earlier still made Qin Wendian very satisfied. Strong and responsible, he would definitely be able to support the heavens and earth in the future. Mo Feng is a good child. Mo Qingqing smiled. To think that the child from back then was already so strong. He's a good fellow. Qin Wendian smiled and nodded. Little Exen hugged Mo Qingqing as she stared at Qin Wendian. Uncle, yesterday Daddy said that you are very awesome. There seems to be someone bullying elder brother over there. Uncle, can you help elder brother? Qin Wendian gently stroked the little cheeks of Exen. Before this, no one paid any attention to the bead curtain. But now that the sound of their voices drifted over, the gazes of many turned over. With a piercing sound, the bead curtain was torn apart as the gazes of many turned over. The instant they saw them, the gazes of many froze. What breathtaking beauties! The young man exuded an extraordinary aura. Although he didn't exude any aura, just by sitting there, he gave off a feeling that he was born with the heavens. As for the young woman, she actually had a countenance so beautiful that it could topple empires. Her beauty was unparalleled, causing the men in the room to be dumbfounded. They were hugging a doll-like beautiful little girl, giving off a feeling that they were a happy family. How envious! As for immortal drunken wine and Mu Ro, they were completely stunned. Their gazes landed on the two of them, unable to shift away. Earlier, they didn't even notice that Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing had appeared before them just like that. Sis, brother-in-law. Mo Yu's eyes were red. Mo Feng was being bullied and his entire family was being threatened, yet she was helpless. If she knew this would happen, she would have listened to her father. Although Ling Yu was very good, she wasn't suitable for Mo Feng to pursue. This man is Mo Feng's brother-in-law? Many had strange expressions on their faces. Bu Shao naturally noticed Qin Wendian. When he heard how Mo Yu addressed the two of them, his countenance turned extremely unsightly. Sis, brother-in-law. Yesterday when he saw Qin Wendian, he was already extremely unhappy. Autumn snow, whom he was wooing, seemed to have some ambiguous relationship with Qin Wenyin. But today, when he saw the woman beside Qin Wenyin, her beauty was so beautiful that it caused him to suffocate. She was so much more beautiful compared to autumn snow. Just someone from the Wu King manor. What capabilities did he have? What qualifications did he have to possess a fairy-like beauty? Brother-in-law, I'm sorry. Mo Feng also called out, feeling somewhat ashamed. Today, he had lost face and even implicated Sis Qingqing and brother-in-law. Ling Yu, who was beside Mo Feng, surveyed Qin Wenyin and Mo Qingqing as she sighed in her heart. What a handsome and beautiful couple. Don't worry about it. Qin Wenyin pulled Mo Yu's hand and walked to Mo Feng's side. He rubbed Mo Feng's head as he smiled. Little fellow, your performance today isn't bad. Mo Feng froze as he stared at Qin Wenyin in bewilderment. Brother-in-law was actually so relaxed? Wasn't he nervous at all? You are called Ling Yu? Qin Wenyin turned to Ling Yu as he smiled. Ling Yu nodded her head. She didn't know why, but when she stared at that pair of deep eyes, an indescribable sense of confidence appeared in her heart. It was as though as long as this man was here, he would be able to resolve everything. Not bad at all. Are you from the Green Cloud Pavilion? Qin Wendian smiled as he asked. Ling Yu nodded. How are Chen Mingyu and old man Gong Hong doing? Ling Yu's body trembled when she heard Qin Wentian's question. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. He was actually acquainted with Chen Mingyu and Gong Hong. Chapter 656. Currently, things weren't going well for Chen Mingyu and Gong Hong in the Green Cloud Pavilion. In truth, ever since the second celestial phenomenon ascendant appeared in the Green Cloud Pavilion, Old Man Green Cloud was forced out and the entire Green Cloud Pavilion underwent a heaven-shaking transformation. The new leader of the Green Cloud Pavilion had a completely different personality from Old Man Green Cloud. He was extremely ambitious and had the ambition to expand his territory. He allied with the Misty Peak in the Qin continent to deal with the setting Sun Mountain and reorganized the resources of the vassal countries outside the Grand Xia Empire. He wanted to advance to the most prosperous region of the 9 continents, the Ginkgo continent and the Moon continent. I'll chat with you later. Qin Wendian smiled when he saw Ling Yu's eyes flickering. He then turned his gaze onto Immortal Drunken Wine and Mu Rou as he smiled. Long time no see. Long time no see. I heard that you returned yesterday and Wu Wei even planned to pay a visit to the Mo residence. I wonder if you managed to meet him? Immortal Drunken Wine laughed, causing the expressions of the crowd to freeze. The Immortal Drunken Wine was referring to was most probably the Emperor of Chu Wei. Chu Wei went to pay a visit to this young man? I missed out. Qin Wendian smiled as he shook his head. He missed out, but I met him. It's been so long since we last met, you have to accompany me for a few drinks. Immortal Drunken Wine laughed. Sure. Qin Wendian nodded. Me too. Mu Rou had a radiant smile on her face. It has been so many years, she didn't expect to meet him again. He had become more and more unfathomable. Right now, his cultivation base should definitely be higher than Immortal Drunken Wine. Not only that, the divine weapon he casually gifted to Mo Feng was a 4th-ranked divine weapon. Mu Rou, after so many years, you are still as beautiful as ever. Qin Wendian laughed, causing Mu Rou to blush. Glancing at Mo Qingqing who was beside Qin Wenyin, she giggled. Is that so? Do you want to pursue me? I will definitely agree. Qin Wenyin couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile on his face when he saw Mu Rou winking at him. To think that he was being teased instead. Staring at Mu Rou's smiling eyes, Qin Wenyin didn't dare to reply no matter how gutsy he was. Dong Yi, Bu Shao and the rest all had expressions of interest on their faces when they saw Qin Wenyin acting as though there was no one else here. Dong Yi stared at Qin Wenyin. Are you Mo Feng's brother-in-law? Qin Wentian's gaze slowly shifted over, landing on Dong Yi. How could Qin Wenyin have any good feelings towards Dong Yi who threatened the families of others? Qin Wenyin merely glanced at him before shifting his gaze back to the others. Seeing Qin Wendian ignoring him, Dong Yi coldly spoke. Since Mo Feng doesn't want to kneel, you can do it on his behalf. If you are unwilling, there's no problem with your girlfriend doing it on her behalf. As he spoke, Dong Yi's gaze turned to Mo Qingqing. He had never seen such a beautiful woman before. Although he liked Ling Yu, it was impossible for his heart to not be moved when he saw a woman like Mo Qingqing. Is he also someone from the Green Cloud Pavilion? Qin Wendian stared at Ling Yu as he asked. Ling Yu shook her head and replied, someone from the Misty Peak. No wonder he is so brazen. Qin Wendian spoke in a low voice. After which, he turned to Bu Shao and continued, on account of autumn snow, I won't make things difficult for you. Within 7 days, get the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to come to Chu to see me. If he doesn't come within 7 days, tell him there's no need for him to come. This was the first time Qin Wendian truly spoke to Dong Yi and Bu Shao. Just a single sentence from him caused everyone to be stunned. Within 7 days, get the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to come to Chu to see him? If he doesn't come within 7 days, tell him there's no need for him to come? How arrogant was this? Telling the Imperial Emperor to come to see him? So arrogant that Bu Shao couldn't help but to laugh uproariously. He stared at Qin Wendian like he was looking at a fool. Did I hear wrongly? Bu Shao glanced to his left and right. He simply didn't dare to imagine that there would be such a foolish person in Chu. Could it be that Qin Wendian didn't know what kind of situation he was facing now? You didn't hear wrongly. Not long ago, a toad appeared here. Now, there's another fool. Dong Yi's voice was ice cold. Bizizi. Qin Wendian abruptly turned his gaze onto Dong Yi. At this instant, his calm eyes abruptly gleamed with a terrifying light. In just an instant, a stifling pressure swept over. After which, the sound of wind whistling rang out. The crowd only saw Dong Yi, who was being stared at by Qin Wendian, trembling uncontrollably. After that, Dong Yi's body slowly floated upwards. His body was actually floating uncontrollably. Dong Yi stared at Qin Wendian's eyes. Those eyes were extremely demonic and powerful. With just a single glance, it felt as though they could pierce through his soul, causing him to feel a bone-chilling coldness. He struggled frenziedly, yet he discovered that the omnipresent energy was restricting him, causing him to float higher and higher. A hoarse roar rang out from Dong Yi's mouth. This sudden change caused everyone to be stunned as they stared dumbfoundedly at Qin Wendian, who was staring at Dong Yi. For the things you did today, dying once is already letting you off too lightly. Qin Wendian's eyes flashed with a demonic blood-colored light. In just an instant, Dong Yi fell into a terrifying dreamscape. Numerous blood-colored long spears pierced into his body, causing Dong Yi's entire body to tremble uncontrollably as his countenance instantly turned pale. Dong Yi first made Mo Feng kneel before him, then threatened the entire Mo residence. After that, he threatened Mo Qingqing, wanting her to atone for her crimes? Just based on this, Dong Yi's death sentence was already set in stone. People from the Misty Peak? Back then in the Royal Sacred Sect, if it wasn't for the various experts obstructing him, he would even dare to kill Zaiqiu. What power could the Misty Peak be considered? Mo Feng and Mo Yu's eyes were wide open as they stared at Qin Wendian in bewilderment. Brother-in-law's strength was so strong, beyond their imaginations. Release him. The old man who snatched away Qin Wendian's long spear earlier roared. He pointed the long spear at Qin Wendian as his voice was ice cold. Qin Wendian glanced at him. With just a single glance, that old man only felt as though he saw a light sharper than the edge of a blade slicing through his body, destroying his soul. That old man trembled slightly as he stared at the young man in front of him. How could there be such a powerful person in Chu? Sir, we are from the Misty Peak. That old man's aura was slightly weaker. He could only use the power of his sect to suppress Qin Wendian. His life is mine. The rest of you scram. If you want revenge, tell the Misty Peak's master to look for me. Qin Wendian took a step forward. With just a single step, the Heavenly Dipper sovereign old man actually slumped onto the ground. He felt as though his entire body was pierced through by a sharp sword as he coughed out fresh blood. He was scared silly as he inclined his head in shock. The long spear in his hands had long since been tossed aside. If he wanted revenge, tell the Misty Peak's master to look for him. How tyrannical was this? Although this sounded somewhat illusory, in the face of such strength, he couldn't even muster the slightest bit of thoughts of revenge. Most probably, if he wanted to deal with this young man, he would have to ask the Misty Peak's master for help. How terrifying was this young man? The others had long since been scared silly as their bodies trembled. Everywhere Qin Wentian's gaze passed by, they all lowered their heads, not daring to look directly at that pair of eyes that were as sharp as swords. Dong Yi, who was floating in the air, was scared silly. Earlier, he thought that Qin Wentian was an idiot. But now, he himself was scared silly as well. His countenance was completely drained of all color. "Senior, this junior had no intention to offend you." Dong Yi's voice was trembling. Qin Wentian glanced at Mo Qingqing. Mo Qingqing hugged little Exeng and turned around, blindfolding little Exeng. After which, Qin Wentian waved his hand, and with a thunderous boom, Dong Yi's body directly vanished into thin air. Not even a single drop of blood could be seen. He vanished into thin air just like that. When Bu Xiao looked at Qin Wentian again, the expression in his eyes was already somewhat abnormal. His body trembled unceasingly, as though he was trembling. He simply didn't dare to imagine how powerful Qin Wentian was. A heavenly Dipper sovereign was suppressed to the ground with a single step. He finally understood why Autumn Snow was acting so strangely yesterday. He also finally understood why the woman beside Qin Wentian was so beautiful. They basically weren't people from the same world. When Qin Wentian's gaze landed on him, Bu Zhao's entire body stiffened as though he was waiting for judgment. "Let me remind you one more time. If you don't come within 7 days, there's no need for the Imperial Emperor to come anymore." As Qin Wentian spoke, he took a step forward. With a thunderous boom, Bu Zhao's body was directly flung through the air by an incomparably terrifying force, vanishing from the vision of everyone. "Why are you all still not scramming? Do you want me to invite you all?" Qin Wentian turned his gaze to the people Dong Yi brought over. Those people all felt as though they had just been granted amnesty as they hurriedly left the inn. Staying here, they couldn't even breathe smoothly. That sort of suffocating pressure was simply too unbearable. Revenge? They didn't even dare to think of such a thought. Someone who directly asked the Imperial Emperor to come see him and the Misty Peak Lord to find him for revenge, would they even dare to have the thought of revenge? Most probably, Dong Yi had died for nothing. This time around, they had kicked an iron plate that they couldn't afford to offend. It wasn't that Qin Wentian didn't dare to kill them. It was just that he couldn't be bothered to do so. The mastermind behind today's incident, Dong Yi, had his soul dissipated, not even a drop of blood was spilled. When he killed Dong Yi, did he see that young man frown? Brother-in-law. Mou stared dumbfoundedly at everything that happened before her. Her mind was in a mess, truly in a mess. Her entire person was abnormal. Brother-in-law, you want to teach me cultivation? Mou rushed up and hugged Qin Wentian's arm tightly. Today, her understanding of the world had been toppled by Qin Wentian. She was born in a major clan in Chu, and her grandfather was a heavenly Dipper sovereign. She could be considered to have seen many things, but she also knew that a power like the Green Cloud Imperial Empire was an existence she didn't dare to imagine, let alone the Green Cloud Pavilion and Misty Peak. However, a casual sentence from Qin Wentian was to tell the Imperial Emperor to come see him. She had seen many young geniuses before, and there were even many people who pursued her. These people always liked to show off their excellence, and their words were filled with arrogance and arrogance. But could that be considered arrogance? Today, she finally saw what arrogance was and finally understood what pride was. With such a powerful brother-in-law, only then could she be proud. Chu? This morning, didn't the Emperor of Chu come to visit brother-in-law? With brother-in-law around, wouldn't the entire Green Cloud Imperial Empire be able to do whatever they wanted in the future? Mou happily fantasized. There shouldn't be any pressure, right? Chapter 657. The shock in Mo Feng's heart was even more intense compared to Mou. He was still standing there in a daze, staring at Qin Wenyin. Was this the true strength of brother-in-law? How powerful was brother-in-law exactly? Ling Yu, who was beside Mo Feng, had a deeper understanding of how powerful Qin Wenyin was. Her face was filled with astonishment. Since Mo Feng's brother-in-law was acquainted with Qian Mingyu, and also knew of the Green Cloud Pavilion and Misty Peak, he should also know what level these two transcendent powers were at. However, he still dared to say that he wanted the Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to meet him within 7 days, and even wanted the Misty Peak Lord to seek revenge. From this, one could very well imagine what level this man before them was at. However, he was still so young, he shouldn't be 30 years old yet. Had he really reached such a high level of attainment? This was too unbelievable. Mo Feng, the long spear I gave you is still lying on the ground. Do you not want it any more? Qin Wenyin spoke to Mo Feng. Yes. Mo Feng hurriedly picked up the divine spear that was lying on the ground. Only now did he know the weight of this divine spear. A 4th-ranked divine weapon, the current him wasn't qualified to wield it. Most probably, only after he stepped into the Heavenly Dipper realm would he be able to truly wield this divine spear as his weapon. Brother-in-law, the divine weapon you gave me, what grade is it? Mou shook Qin Wenyan's arm. She was filled with the vitality of youth, as though she had regained her liveliness. 4th-ranked. Qin Wenyan shook his head with a bitter smile. Mou giggled. In the entire Mo residence, other than Sis Qingqing and brother-in-law, only he and Mou had a 4th-ranked divine weapon. Not only that, it should be one of the more powerful 4th-ranked divine weapons. Mo Qingqing had been standing behind them with a smile on her face. At this moment, she walked forward, her gaze landing on Ling Yu as she smiled. Mo Feng, aren't you going to introduce your friend to us? Mo Feng started. After that, he scratched his head, wanting to stretch out his hand to pull Ling Yu. However, he retracted his hand in the end. Ling Yu seemed to have sensed it and took the initiative to stretch out her hand, holding onto Mo Feng's hand as an expression of shyness flashed past her face. He stared at the smiling Qin Wenyin and Mo Qingqing. Ling Yu, this is my elder sister Mo Qingqing. Back then, Sister Qingqing was the #1 beauty in Chu. Naturally now, she's still the same. This is my brother-in-law, Qin Wenyin. When I was young, brother-in-law obtained the position of #1 in the June Lin banquet when he was only 17. After that, Sister Qingqing was harmed by someone and brother-in-law followed her out to roam the world. Now, 10 years have passed and he's holding Sister Qingqing's hand as we're preparing for our wedding. Ling Yu seriously listened, staring at this immortal-like couple in front of her. Although Mo Feng had only said a few words, it still caused a warm current to flow in her heart. She didn't expect that the two of them would have such a poignant legendary story when they were still young. It has been 10 years and he returned in such a domineering manner, marrying the woman he loved when he was still young. This story was so beautiful. Could the story between her and Mo Feng be so beautiful as well? Sis, brother-in-law, this is Ling Yu. Mo Feng laughed heartlessly as he held Ling Yu's hand tightly. He definitely wanted to be like his brother-in-law, holding the hand of his lover, never letting go forever. Mo Qingqing took out a few small bottles and passed them to Ling Yu. She smiled. The red bottle contains the spirit cleansing pill, the blue bottle contains the aperture molding pill, and the brown bottle contains the limit break pill. This pill can increase the chances of breaking through to the Heavenly Dipper realm. You can consume it in the future. As for the green bottle, it contains the life recovery pill. Before you step into the celestial phenomenon realm, this pill can heal any injuries that aren't poisonous. Don't waste it on light injuries. Take these as a greeting gift. Ling Yu stared dumbfoundedly at Mo Qingqing. Pills that could increase the chances of breaking through to the Heavenly Dipper realm and could heal any injuries before the celestial phenomenon realm? How heaven-defying were these pills? Even his Green Cloud Pavilion might not have them. Ling Yu actually felt a little embarrassed as she stretched her hands out to receive them. Ling Yu, since Sister Qingqing is giving them to you, just keep them. Mo Feng spoke in a low voice. Ling Yu nodded her head and carefully kept the pills. Staring at the fairy-like woman in front of her, she could see a trace of doting love in her eyes. This fairy sister really treated her as a junior, right? Her gaze was so warm, causing people to feel comfortable. "Thank you, elder sister." Ling Yu obediently replied. "I didn't prepare any gifts." "Ling Yu, which of these divine weapons do you like? Feel free to choose any one of them." Qin Wendian spoke as he waved his hand. A moment later, a row of divine weapons appeared beside him. In an instant, a resplendent light illuminated the entire inn. The aura exuded from each of the divine weapons caused Ling Yu's heavenly Dipper Sovereign guards to feel a sense of suffocation as their breaths quickened. Never would they have expected that the silly little fellow Mo Feng, whom they didn't have high hopes for, would actually have such a powerful elder sister and brother-in-law. Also, the two of them seemed to dote on Mo Feng a lot. Just this point alone was sufficient to change the fate of this silly little fellow Mo Feng. When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs rise to the heavens. Mo Feng's good fortune wasn't something everyone could have. "Little miss, please choose." Seeing Ling Yu's hesitation, her heavenly Dipper Sovereign guards were all extremely depressed. The divine weapons placed before them were all extremely high-tier 4th-ranked divine weapons. Ling Yu could even choose a high-tier 4th-ranked divine weapon, yet her little miss was still standing there like a fool. Ling Yu walked up and chose a sharp sword as well as a divine robe. After which, she turned to Qin Wendian and smiled warmly. "That's enough. Take this feathered wing as well." Qin Wendian smiled. With a wave of his hand, a feathered wing appeared in front of Ling Yu. This divine weapon would allow Ling Yu to have an advantage in speed. Ling Yu blushed as she nodded her head. Qin Wendian kept the divine weapon as he took out a golden scroll and passed it to Ling Yu. These are spatial teleportation scrolls. They can allow you to teleport a certain distance. Keep them all. The hearts of Ling Yu's guards trembled once more. Just how wealthy was this pair of lovers? To think that they would give away such precious items in bulk just like that. When Ling Yu heard Qin Wendian's words, how could she not understand how precious these gifts were? She blushed as she stared at the gentle smile in Qin Wendian's eyes. She then called out, "Thank you, brother-in-law." Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing exchanged glances as they smiled. Ling Yu calling them elder sister and brother-in-law made them feel extremely comfortable in their hearts. They wouldn't interfere with the relationship between Mo Feng and Ling Yu, they would only do what they could to help. Ling Yu's way of addressing them was already a tacit acknowledgement of the relationship between her and Mo Feng. "Sis, brother-in-law, you guys are biased." Mo Yu only started giggling now, as though she wanted to take advantage of the situation to rob them. "I won't forget about you in the future." Mo Qingqing glared at this lass, causing Mo Yu to smile in satisfaction. "Exiner wants one too." Little Exiner, who was in Mo Qingqing's embrace, stared at her adorable expression. Mo Qingqing smiled as she pinched Exiner's cheeks. "Okay, Exiner naturally has one too. Fairy sister is so nice." Little Exiner rubbed Mo Qingqing's face as a happy smile appeared on her face. Upon seeing this scene, the crowd couldn't help but smile. This scene caused them to feel a sense of warmth. "Let's sit down and chat." Qin Wendian saw that everyone was still standing. He then turned his gaze onto Immortal Drunken Wine and Mu Rou as he smiled. "How many cups of wine do you want to drink?" "Okay, I will go get some." Immortal Drunken Wine smiled as he turned and left. The group of them sat down, while Ling Yu's guards tactfully retreated. Although they had heavenly Dipper sovereigns among them and could be considered kings in Chu, in front of this couple, if it wasn't for the fact that they were his family and friends, heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't even have the qualifications to sit together with him. Immortal Drunken Wine took out the best wine in the wine cellar. When it entered the mouth, it tasted sweet and fragrant, yet when it entered the stomach, it felt like it was burning hot. It even faintly tempered the meridians in one's body. "Back then, I already knew that you were a dragon among men. After 10 years, I can only look up to you in admiration. If I knew this earlier, I would have followed Chu Mang and roamed the world together." Immortal drunken wine downed a cup of wine as he sighed. You are the immortal of wine, and your personality is unrestrained and unrestrained. Even if you had a second chance, you wouldn't choose to leave with me. Qin Wenyin laughed, as though he had seen through immortal drunken wine's personality. To think that other than Wu Wei, you are the only one who understands me. Immortal drunken wine laughed. Back then at the Jun Lin banquet, Wu Wei and I bet on you. At that time, even we didn't think that we would win, but who would have thought that the ending would be even more marvelous than we had imagined? Immortal drunken wine drank a few more cups as he started to chat about the past. Mu Rou quietly listened by the side. She was extremely silent, maybe she didn't know what to say. Could it be that 10 years ago, she had already been secretly in love with this young man before her? Seeing him sitting together with Mo Qingqing, Mu Rou's heart was filled with sincerity. They were destined to be an immortal couple. When Qin Wenyin and the others were chatting in the Drunken Wine Inn, the Drunken Wine Inn was already in an uproar. With the Drunken Wine Inn as the center, a piece of news rapidly circulated throughout the royal capital of Chu. 10 years later, the number 1 ranker of the Jun Lin banquet, Qin Wenyin, and the number 1 beauty of Chu, Mo Qingqing, returned to Chu hand in hand. In the Drunken Wine Inn, Qin Wenyin had a conflict with those from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire and Misty Peak. He domineeringly killed one of them and chased the others away, leaving behind an arrogant declaration that he would summon the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to see him within 7 days. Evidently, the commotion caused by the incident in the Drunken Wine Inn wasn't small. This news spread out at a terrifying speed, shaking the entire royal capital of Chu. Over 10 years had passed. Although Qin Wenyin had left for a very long time, there were still people who would occasionally mention his story. For these 10 years, the reason why Chu Wei was the emperor of Chu was because of a single sentence from Qin Wenyin back then. With the return of such a character, how could the royal capital of Chu not be shaken? Although the outside world was shaken, the inn was still as calm as ever. Not long after, the Emperor Chu Wei personally brought his men to the Drunken Wine Inn, causing the hearts of the people in the inn to tremble. The rumors back then were indeed true. The moment Qin Wenyin appeared, Chu Wei personally came to pay him a visit. Chu Wei and Chu Mang appeared together in the inn, causing Qin Wenyin to be extremely happy in his heart. His elder brother Chu Mang had indeed returned to Chu earlier than him. Seems like his feelings for his elder brother Chu Wei hadn't changed at all. Long time no see. Chu Wei was still as carefree and unrestrained as ever, smiling at Qin Wenyin. Long time no see. Qin Wenyin stood up and gave Chu Mang a hug as he smiled. Big bro Chu Mang, are you doing well? I'm doing well. Chu Mang also hugged Qin Wenyin tightly as a simple and honest smile appeared on his face. Upon seeing the relationship between the two of them, a faint smile appeared in Chu Wei's eyes. Chapter 658. Big Bro Chu Mang, did Fatty Fan Lu Ouyang and the others split up with you a long time ago? Qin Wenyin thought of his companions. Chu Mang nodded. Back then when we left the royal sacred region, we split up. However, they agreed to leave a message in the unmatched realm. If we go there, we should be able to find them. Very soon, I will be holding my wedding with Qingqing. If those fellows dare to not attend, I will definitely not spare them. Qin Wenyin smiled. He first returned to Chu with Qingqing, but he still had to make a trip to Grand Xia. Firstly, it was to invite his companions over. Secondly, there was another matter he needed to do. If they dare to not attend your wedding, I won't spare them. Chu Mang laughed happily. Qin Wenyin and Qingqing were finally going to get married? How happy! Back then when they heard that Qin Wenyin went to the Pill Emperor Hall alone, all his companions were extremely heartbroken. Luckily, everything was over now. The current Qin Wenyin didn't need to care about the Pill Emperor Hall anymore. He was a disciple of the Battle Sword sect, the foster son of the human emperor of Ancient Yi. Just a single word from him would be enough to destroy the entire Pill Emperor Hall. Chu Mang had left the royal sacred region for quite some time now. He still didn't know that Qin Wendian had already left the Battle Sword sect. This was to avoid future conflicts with the Royal Sacred Sect and implicating the Battle Sword sect. After all, the Battle Sword sect was a subsidiary sect of the Royal Sacred Sect. The group of them sat back down and chatted for a while. After that, Qin Wenyan stared at Chu Wei as he asked, "What's going on with the Green Cloud Imperial Empire?" As he spoke, he glanced at Ling Yu. Ling Yu was someone from the Green Cloud Pavilion. She should know some things. "This morning, I went to the MO residence because I wanted to discuss this with you. The Green Cloud Imperial Empire is a power established by the Green Cloud Pavilion. Their purpose is to unite the 10 subsidiary countries, and they have the intention to merge all 10 countries into one. Hence, their control over the 10 countries is extremely tight. As for the matters of the Green Cloud Pavilion, I have no way to come into contact with them." Chu Wei replied. Ling Yu nodded. "Ling Yu, is this old man Qin Yun's intention?" Qin Wendian asked. Ling Yu looked at Qin Wendian in surprise, but at this moment, she could accept the fact that Qin Wendian knew Old Man Green Cloud. After all, judging from Qin Wentian's previous performance, he should have stepped into a very high realm, and it was very likely that he had some contact with the upper echelons of the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Old Man Green Cloud left the Green Cloud Pavilion a long time ago. After the destruction of the 9 mystical palace, a second celestial phenomenon ascendant appeared in the Green Cloud Pavilion. That ascendant proclaimed himself as the Green Cloud Sovereign and was extremely powerful. He fought against Old Man Green Cloud for the authority to control the Green Cloud Pavilion. Old Man Green Cloud lost, and hence, he left the Green Cloud Pavilion to roam the world. A sect producing 2 celestial phenomenon ascendants, the Green Cloud Pavilion should have risen to prominence by now. Why would there be internal strife? Qin Wendian asked in bewilderment. The reason why the Great Solar Chen clan was so powerful back then was because they had 3 celestial phenomenon ascendants in their ranks. A single celestial phenomenon ascendant was extremely important to a transcendent power of Grand Xia. The Green Cloud Sovereign is extremely powerful and has wild ambitions. His relationship with Old Man Green Cloud isn't very harmonious, and he needs absolute control over the sect. For those who don't agree with him, although he wouldn't do anything to them, he would make sure that person would be reduced to a branch of the Green Cloud Pavilion, losing all authority. Back then, both of them opposed the establishment of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Now, they no longer have any authority to speak in the Green Cloud Pavilion. Qin Wentian's brows twitched. Seems like this newly ascended Green Cloud Sovereign was extremely powerful and had a strong desire to control the Green Cloud Pavilion. Although Old Man Green Cloud was already a celestial phenomenon ascendant, his strength couldn't be measured by the time he broke through to the celestial phenomenon realm. At the celestial phenomenon realm, the disparity between different celestial phenomenon ascendants could be extremely great. The position of the faction I'm in has also been weakened by a lot. The upper echelons hope that I can form a marriage alliance with someone from the Misty Peak, using this to improve the relationship between our 2 powers. Also, such a marriage alliance has already happened several times. Hence, Dong Yi is the reason why I came out to relax. Ling Yu lowered her head as she spoke. Her faction had an extraordinary status in the Green Cloud Pavilion, but now, they still had to listen to the Green Cloud Sovereign's orders. I see. Qin Wendian nodded his head. He smiled at Ling Yu. Ling Yu, you temporarily don't return to the Green Cloud Pavilion. Stay in Chu for a few more days and let Mo Feng accompany you. Your family members will understand you in the future. When Ling Yu heard Qin Wentian's words, she felt that something was amiss. Staring at the concerned gaze in Qin Wentian's eyes, she didn't want to reject him. Qin Wentian was definitely doing this for her own good. Hence, she nodded her head. Okay. Chu Wei didn't continue the topic of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Since Qin Wendian already knew about it, the Green Cloud Imperial Empire was no longer a problem. While they were chatting, more and more people arrived at the Drunken Wine Inn. Many clan leaders from the major clans of Chu personally came to pay their respects. Among them, Mu Ro's clan was included, as well as the experts from the Divine Weapon Pavilion whom Qin Wenyan was acquainted with in the past. However, Luyan didn't come. She should have long left Chu. Among the various clans, only Mu Ro's father and the pavilion lord of the Divine Weapon Pavilion were invited to the inn. The others waited outside, but they didn't dare to have any thoughts. Even the emperor of Chu Wei, personally came to pay his respects. What could they do if they waited outside? However, when the others arrived at the inn, Qin Wenyan personally went out to welcome them. Staring at the silhouettes in front of him, Qin Wenyan bowed. Old Gu, Senior Ren, teacher, Wenyan was planning to pay my respects to the elders of the Emperor Star Academy. When Qin Wenyan returned to the royal capital from the Sky Harmony City, he already had the thought of going to the Emperor Star Academy together with Mo Qingqing. It was just that he was coincidentally dragged here by Mou, and the people from the Emperor Star Academy actually took the initiative to pay their respects. Wenyan, there's no need to be so polite with us old fellows. Ren Qianxing hurriedly stepped forward, preventing Qin Wenyan from bowing. He had heard from Mustang that Qin Wenyan had roamed the outside world, causing the entire Grand Xia Empire to be turned upside down. In terms of strength, Ren Qianxing still had to address Qin Wenyan as senior. Little brat, what did you call me? Old Gu stood on the back of his demonic beast, his arms crossed in front of his chest as he beamed at Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan laughed as he bowed once more. Wenyan sends his regards to grandfather. Good. Old Gu also stepped forward to support Qin Wenyan, his face filled with smiles. Grandfather, Qingqing originally planned to pay a visit to you. How are your bones? Mo Qingqing passed little Exen Mou as she walked forward and hugged Old Gu's arm, as though she had returned to the time when she was still a young girl. Good, very healthy. I was just about to reprimand you, but you better shut grandfather's mouth first. Old Gu dotingly rubbed Mo Qingqing's head, as Mo Qingqing gently smiled. Teacher, how are you? Qin Wenyan smiled as he looked at Mustang. How can I not be well? As for your senior sister Luo Huan, I'm afraid she's still busy with your matters outside. Mustang laughed. I'll bring my senior sister back to Chu a few days later. Qin Wenyan laughed. Qingqing and I are about to get married. Teacher, at that time, you have to be my elder and bear witness to our wedding. Right, this old bag of bones of mine can still endure the torment. I'll be waiting. Mustang happily nodded his head. This most outstanding disciple of his was finally going to marry the number one beauty of Chu. Mo Qingqing was the maternal granddaughter of his teacher, Old Gu. Old Gu coughed a few times, causing Mustang to awkwardly smile. Teacher, I'm just running errands for you. Useless fellow, since you are Wentian's teacher, I shall let you have it easy this time. On the day of the wedding, you will be on the same level as me. Old Gu joked as everyone laughed. The relationship between the three generations was truly heartwarming. The private rooms of the inn were almost full. Everyone surrounded Qin Wenyan and asked him many questions. The atmosphere was joyous and harmonious, and only after a long time did they disperse. Qin Wenyan and Mo Qingqing returned to the Mo residence together. That fellow Mo Feng even abducted Ling Yu to be a guest in the Mo residence. The people of the Mo clan were naturally very happy. For the next day, Qin Wenyan and Mo Qingqing were busy helping little Exen, Mo Feng, Mo Yu and Ling Yu to change their physiques. Little Exo was the youngest, and with Qin Wenyan and Mo Qingqing around, this little lass should be able to condense an astral soul from the third heavenly layer when she was 10 years old. Another day passed. Qin Chuan brought the members of the Qin clan and headed towards the Mo residence in the royal capital. Using the strength of the entire Qin clan, they prepared a generous betrothal gift. Although the betrothal gift couldn't be compared to the wealth of Qin Wenyan and Mo Qingqing, it represented the sincerity of Qin Chuan and the entire Qin clan. They would do their best to make this wedding as perfect as possible. The Mo clan was naturally overjoyed. They organized a grand banquet and all the aristocrats of Chu came to offer their congratulations. The date of the wedding was also fixed. Because of this, the royal clan announced to the world that on the day of the wedding between Qin Wenyan and Mo Qingqing, a banquet would be held in the entire royal capital. At the same time, the entire Chu country would be mobilized to maintain order and control the number of people entering the royal capital. The entire Chu country was shaken. Countless people who heard of Qin Wentian's name all rushed to the royal capital, wanting to see for themselves how grand this wedding would be. It actually caused the Emperor of Chu to announce to the world that there would be a banquet in the entire royal capital. After the news of the wedding was announced, Qin Wentian personally wrote out numerous invitation cards. After which, he summoned several astral war beasts that were proficient in speed, telling them to hold the invitation cards and rush towards the royal sacred region. Right now, the astral war beasts Qin Wentian summoned were all peak-tier heavenly dipper sovereigns. The amount of astral energy in their bodies was so vast that it was sufficient to allow them to cross the distance between Chu and the royal sacred region. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing were officially together. The two of them spent every day together, hugging little Exora as they roamed the royal capital like ordinary people, enjoying the pleasures of ordinary people. Until one day, in the airspace above the royal palace of Chu, a group of experts descended in an imposing manner. 9 powerful heavenly dipper sovereigns were pulling a dragon carriage. Within the dragon carriage, there was an incomparably tyrannical figure with a crown on his head. This was none other than the Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. At the instant these people arrived, the entire royal palace trembled. The experts from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire in the air released a terrifying aura as they roared. Subject Chu Wei of Chu is here to receive the Emperor. Their voices shook the surrounding tens of miles around the royal palace, causing countless people to turn their heads in the direction of the royal palace. The Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire had arrived within 7 days. Chapter 659. The Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire was personally appointed by the Green Cloud Sovereign. He controlled 10 countries and was extremely powerful. He was a staunch supporter of the Green Cloud Sovereign, and his status in the Green Cloud Pavilion wasn't low at all. He was an elder-level character. Right now, he was in charge of 10 countries and had immense authority. He collected the wealth of the 10 countries and married many maidens, living a carefree and happy life. He was currently preparing to merge the 10 countries into one, removing the name of country, and merging them into the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. At that time, he would truly be the hegemon of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. This was much more enjoyable compared to the days he spent in the Green Cloud Pavilion. Because of his age, he had been stuck at the peak of Heavenly Dipper for many years. In the Green Cloud Pavilion, he had always been suppressed by others. Now, he could finally soar as high as the heavens. However, he didn't expect that in a mere Chu country, there would actually be someone who dared to be so brazen, telling him to come here within 7 days. As the Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, with the support of the Green Cloud Pavilion, he truly wanted to see who dared to be so arrogant. Subject Chu Wei, quickly come out to receive the Emperor. A loud voice rang out, causing the entire Chu royal palace to tremble as a huge wave of commotion rose up. Within the royal palace, numerous silhouettes stepped out. An instant later, several people appeared. Chu Mang brought Chu Wei over, standing guard by his side. Chu Wei then turned his gaze onto the Green Cloud Imperial Emperor as he spoke. Chu Wei respectfully welcomes the arrival of the Green Cloud Imperial Emperor. The Green Cloud Imperial Emperor was still seated in his dragon carriage. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at Chu Wei. Beside him, an expert clad in silver-white armor announced, "Under the command of His Majesty, the subjects of Chu are too arrogant. From today onwards, the name of Chu shall be removed and the Chu country shall be directly governed by the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Chu Wei, follow me back to the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. There will naturally be someone who will take over the position of Chu country." As the sound of his voice faded, the entire royal palace was in an uproar. Many people were greatly shocked as their countenances drastically changed. The Green Cloud Imperial Empire officially withdrew from Chu. Their arrival was so intense and ferocious. "Your Majesty, although my Chu country was once a vassal country of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, we are still an independent country. Forgive me for not being able to comply. Chu Wei calmly spoke. Impudent. Chu Mang stepped out, standing in front of Chu Wei. His countenance was ice-cold as his aura erupted forth, exuding a tyrannical aura. His strength isn't bad, there's actually someone in Chu with such a cultivation base. No wonder he dares to be so arrogant. The Green Cloud Imperial Emperor walked out from the dragon carriage. He was clad in royal robes and had a crown on his head, exuding an incomparably imposing aura. His gaze swept through the Chu country as he smiled. From today onwards, the males of the Chu country shall be sent away by the Green Cloud Imperial Empire while the females shall be sent to the Green Cloud Imperial Empire for distribution. The countenances of those in the royal palace were all greatly shocked. The countenances of the maidens were as pale as paper. To think that the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire would be so ruthless, treating the people in the royal palace as objects to be distributed. He simply didn't treat them as humans. The men would be banished and the women would be sent to the Green Cloud Imperial Empire for distribution. How would they be distributed? Were they all given away? Domineering and tyrannical, the Green Cloud Imperial Emperor was using iron-blooded methods to intimidate Chu, causing the other countries to not dare to have any thoughts of resistance. The strength of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire could suppress everything. Those who resisted definitely wouldn't have a good ending. Great rivers and mountains, not bad indeed. It's rumored that the females of the Chu country are extremely beautiful. I wonder if it's true or not. The Green Cloud Imperial Emperor faintly spoke, his countenance exuding a sense of imposingness, causing others to not dare to resist. Chu Mang's aura surged wildly, and just when he was prepared to fight, a voice filled with a terrifying might drifted over from afar. I told you to come to Chu within 7 days because I want you to repent and not to flaunt your strength. As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying sword chi tempest manifested in the air. The eyes of the crowd stared in the distance as their countenances were filled with terror. After which, they only saw a king's sword brimming with boundless sword might flying over, stirring up the wind and clouds. Above the royal palace of Chu, the wind and clouds changed as sword chi ravaged the area, wanting to tear apart the sky. This sword was gigantic, suppressing everything, destroying everything as it sped towards the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Your Majesty, be careful. The countenances of the people from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire drastically changed. Even the Imperial Emperor had a look of terror on his face. That sword might was simply unblockable. I'm the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, in order from the Green Cloud Sovereign. How dare you be so impudent? The Imperial Emperor roared. The gigantic sword arrived, wanting to tear apart everything. The experts from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire rushed forward to resist, but as the gigantic sword whistled past, their bodies were all lacerated, transforming into a rain of blood. The countenance of the Imperial Emperor was incredibly ugly to behold. With a roar of rage, the gigantic sword descended with a force so great that it felt like even the heavens would collapse. This sword was an astral nova. The Imperial Emperor's aura towered up into the sky as he frenziedly released his astral nova. However, as the king's sword swept past, everything was destroyed. His countenance was filled with terror. He wanted to flee, but the sword directly slammed into him. Piercing sounds rang out as the terrifying might of the sword directly tore his body apart, leaving nothing behind. Boom! A thunderous sound thundered through the air as the astral nova suppressed the heavens and earth. The experts from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire felt the sword might, and when they saw the Imperial Emperor dying, their bodies trembled violently as their countenances turned ashen. A single sword strike directly killed the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Below, those from the royal palace of Chu were all dumbfounded. They only felt that everything that happened before their eyes was like a dream. When the Imperial Emperor arrived, his aura towered up into the sky. How arrogant was he? He was like a sovereign descending upon the world, causing the Chu country to become the Chu prefecture, banishing the men from the royal palace and distributing the women to them. He was simply unexcelled in this world. But in the blink of an eye, he was killed with a single sword strike. He didn't even have a chance to defend himself. Using the name of the Green Cloud Sovereign to suppress others? The one who killed him completely ignored him, directly killing him without mercy. Outside the royal palace, there were also many people who turned their gazes over. When they saw this scene, great waves of shock rose up in their hearts. The Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, controlling 10 countries. Was he powerful? Arrogant? A single sword strike killed. From afar, a white-robed figure slowly walked over. With a single glance, this person exuded a demonic aura. Staring at his eyes, one would feel as though they were intoxicated. This young man's age was definitely not over 30, but it was precisely him who killed the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire with a single sword strike. Is he the Qin Wenyin who caused the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to come here within 7 days? Over 10 years ago, he obtained the top ranker of the Junlin banquet. Now, he brought back the #1 beauty of Chu, Mo Qingqing, and will be getting married in his homeland. The Chu Emperor announced this to the world and arranged for a banquet to be held in his homeland. If I didn't remember wrongly, he should be 28 years old this year. Returning to his homeland in glory, returning to Chu for his wedding. The Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire came to Chu to cause trouble, yet he killed him with a single sword strike. How glorious is this? Everyone had different thoughts in their minds as they sighed ruefully. The gigantic sword whistled in rage as the hearts of those from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire trembled. However, they only saw the sword returning back into Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wenyan didn't kill them, but the hearts of the crowd were all trembling. Go back and report this to the Green Cloud Sovereign. Tell him that I, Qin Wenyan, will be getting married in Chu and ask him to attend the ceremony. Qin Wenyan stared at the crowd as he coldly spoke. Back then, he transformed into a great rock and joined hands with Fairy Qingmei to invite Old Man Green Cloud to attack the 9 mystical palace, destroying it. At that time, although they didn't reveal their identities, the upper echelons of the Green Cloud Pavilion would definitely know about it. The Green Cloud Sovereign was the person in charge of the Green Cloud Pavilion, and as long as these people passed the message to him, the Green Cloud Sovereign would definitely know who Qin Wenyan was. The countenances of the crowd were all different, yet huge waves rose up in their hearts. Could it be that this man didn't even fear the Green Cloud Sovereign? If not, why would he dare to kill the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire and even dare to ask the Green Cloud Sovereign to attend the ceremony? The crowd replied as they turned and retreated one after another. They came with boundless arrogance, but when they left, they were like stray dogs. The Imperial Emperor was killed with a single sword strike. How laughable was this? What was even more lamentable was that before this, they were still announcing the decree to change the Chu country into the Chu prefecture. But now that they thought about it, it was like a joke. Chu Wei calmly watched everything that happened, yet waves of shock rose up in his heart. From Chu Mang, he already knew about Qin Wentian's situation in the outside world. But when he personally saw how tyrannical that unyielding youth was back then at the Junlin banquet, he still felt as though he was dreaming. Not only him, everyone in the royal palace felt as though they were in a dream. Qin Wenyan nodded his head to Chu Mang and the others before he turned and departed. Killing the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire was nothing to him. His death was sufficient to let the Green Cloud Sovereign and the Misty Peak Lord know of his, Qin Wentian's, existence. They knew that he, Qin Wenyan, had returned to Chu. The incident in the royal palace instantly caused a huge commotion in Chu. The name of Qin Wenyan once again resounded through the entire country, causing great waves of commotion. Countless people would be in high spirits when talking about him. Killing the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire with a single sword strike, how magnificent was this? The Mo residents, Qin Clan, Emperor Star Academy, and the other major powers all felt their hearts pounding violently when they heard of this matter. How strong was Qin Wenyan now exactly? He actually dared to ask the Green Cloud Sovereign to attend the ceremony? However, a few days later, when Gong Yang Hong and several other experts from the Green Cloud Pavilion came to Chu to pay a visit to Qin Wenyan, who had caused such a huge commotion in Chu, had already left the royal capital of Chu. The Grand Xia Empire was boundlessly vast, and in the air, a white-robed silhouette was riding on a flying sword, whistling through the air. This white-robed silhouette stared down at the vast land below as a look of reminiscence flashed in his eyes. Chu was his homeland, but Grand Xia was the place where he grew up. When he was 18 years old, he entered Grand Xia and grew up here. There were simply too many things that happened here. Now, he had returned to this land. This time around, he wanted to settle the matters of Grand Xia and Chu together. Today in Grand Xia, the various transcendent powers were still in control of this ancient empire. Other than the great Solar Qin clan and the 9 mystical palace, the other transcendent powers were still as powerful as ever. Back then, the Pill Emperor Hall suffered a huge storm. But after Jun Yu came to the Pill Emperor Hall in the name of the Royal Sacred Sect, the Pill Emperor Hall had recovered their strength and was still one of the strongest transcendent powers in Grand Xia. As for the Ouyang aristocrat clan in the Azure continent, their development during these years wasn't too bad. Their strength was extremely strong, but one of their most outstanding juniors, Ouyang Quangxing, was currently at odds with the Ouyang aristocrat clan. At the same time, in Grand Xia, there was an undercurrent that was rumored to be wanting to revive the Azure Emperor Palace. One in the light, one in the dark. It was as though there were 2 Azure Emperor Palaces. Chapter 660. In the unmatched realm of the Azure continent, everything was the same as before. The geniuses of Grand Xia came to the unmatched realm to cultivate, and as long as they passed the test, they would all be accepted. Today, an uninvited guest appeared in the unmatched realm. The eyes of many elites of the unmatched realm flickered with curiosity. Although this person was young, his demeanor was extraordinary, and he didn't seem to be a junior. His cultivation base shouldn't be weak at all. You're here. At this moment, a silhouette appeared. This person was none other than the expert who had tested Qin Wenyan back then. He stared at Qin Wenyan, yet he couldn't see through him at all. Senior, did you know that I would return? Qin Wenyan curiously asked. You don't have to refer to me as senior anymore. That person shook his head. They are all waiting for you. Them? Qin Wenyan was taken aback. After which, that person turned and spoke, Follow me. Qin Wenyan nodded and followed after that person, arriving at the summit of one of the 36 mountain peaks. At the summit, Qin Wenyan couldn't help but be stunned when he saw numerous silhouettes appearing in front of him. Fan Lu Yunmingyi, Qin Jing, Mu Feng, all of them were actually here. On the contrary, Ouyang Quangxing from the Azure continent wasn't here. This caused Qin Wenyan to feel a sense of strangeness. These people all had their own plans when they left the royal sacred region. Now that they were all gathered together, something must have happened. Boss, you're finally back. If you still didn't come, we wouldn't know what to do. Fatty Fan Le seemed to have something on his mind. A look of worry could be seen on his face. What happened? Qin Wenyan landed on the summit as he asked. That son of a bitch, the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Fan Le cursed in a low voice. Back then, I was already unhappy with them. They betrayed the alliance because of the appearance of Junyu. Right now, the Ouyang aristocrat clan has 3 celestial phenomenon ascendants, and their strength is even stronger than before. They're getting more and more overboard, wanting to ally with the Jiang clan and rule over Grand Xia. The relationship between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan has always been pretty good, advancing and retreating together. Ouyang Quangxing is even engaged to Jiang Ting. With the destruction of the great Solar Qin clan, it wouldn't be strange if the Ouyang aristocrat clan wanted to rise up. Qin Wenyan spoke. That's not strange at all. But back then, because of the matter of the Ouyang ancestor breaking the alliance agreement, Ouyang Quangxing had a disagreement with them. After he left, the Ouyang aristocrat clan had long since removed Ouyang Quangxing from their list of nurturing core members. This time around, after Ouyang Quangxing returned, he had an intense conflict with the Ouyang aristocrat clan and even fought against a heaven chosen that the Ouyang aristocrat clan was heavily nurtured, injuring that heaven chosen. This enraged the Ouyang aristocrat clan and they decided to remove Ouyang Quangxing's name from the clan. Fan Lu angrily stated. And then? Qin Wentian's eyes sharpened. Qin Zheng, speak. Fatty Fan Lu spoke to Qin Zheng who was beside him. Qin Zheng continued, the person who was beaten up by Ouyang Quangxing was named Ouyang Zichen. This man is a heaven chosen of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, with a cultivation base at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. After Ouyang Quangxing left the clan, he has been pestering Jiang Ting. The countenance on Qin Wentian's face changed slightly. He already understood what was going on. Ouyang Quangxing had a carefree personality, he wasn't someone who was greedy for power. He also disdained the authority of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, and the reason why he came back wasn't because he coveted the authority and status of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Back then, he had already said that as long as Jiang Ting's heart didn't change, he would come back to marry her. But now, Ouyang Zichen was pestering Jiang Ting. Based on Ouyang Quangxing's personality, how could he let this matter rest? However, Qin Wenian could also guess that Ouyang Zichen chasing after Jiang Ting wasn't just because of his own intentions. The Ouyang aristocrat clan definitely had a hand in this. Just like back then, they hoped that Ouyang Quangxing and Jiang Ting would be together. Now that Ouyang Quangxing was no longer under their control, they hoped that someone else could replace Ouyang Quangxing and be together with Jiang Ting. And indeed, Fan Lu raged. A few days ago, the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang Ting announced that Ouyang Zichen would be marrying Jiang Ting 9 days from now. They even invited the transcendent powers of the Azure continent to bear witness. A cold light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes when he heard this. No wonder Fan Lu and the others gathered here. So it was because of Ouyang Quangxing. However, with their current strength, they wouldn't be able to change anything in front of a transcendent power. Ouyang Quangxing must have gone crazy. Qin Wenyan asked, where is he now? Back then when he was in love with the Mo Qingqing, Ouyang Quangxing was already together with Jiang Ting. After over 10 years of love, Jiang Ting would definitely be deeply in love with him. If not, if Jiang Ting was willing, Ouyang Quangxing would definitely have taken the initiative to give up on her. Evidently, Jiang Ting was forced into this marriage. Not only that, there was a high possibility that Ouyang Quangxing would use Ouyang Quangxing to threaten Jiang Ting. The purpose of this marriage alliance was to express the will of the two transcendent powers, to contend for the hegemony of Grand Xia. It didn't matter if Jiang Ting was willing or not. Although she had an important position in the Jiang clan, she wasn't a successor. She was destined to be sacrificed for the sake of the hegemony. She was placed under house arrest by the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Qin Zheng replied. What should we do? Fan Lu stared at Qin Wentian as he asked. A cold light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. Initially, he wanted to do his first battle after returning to Grand Xia at the Pill Emperor Hall. But now, it seemed that the changes to Grand Xia would start from the Azure continent. You guys wait for me in the unmatched realm, I'm going out for a while. Qin Wentian stared at the others. There were still 9 days left, it should be sufficient. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he departed, like the wind. His actions caused Fan Lu and the others to be stunned, as they couldn't help but to be speechless. 2 days later, within a bamboo forest in the Spirit Continent, a small city could be seen. Although the city appeared quiet, there were still demonic beasts roaming about. Qin Wentian stared at this small city that was only tens of miles in size, as a strange light flashed in his heart. It seemed like Fairy Qingmei had made this secret location the Azure Emperor Palace was situated in. This Azure Emperor Palace was the name he had given to the powers he had gathered before he left. Who are you? Even before Qin Wentian's silhouette landed, several maidens appeared in the quiet city. All of their faces were veiled, and their identities were mysterious. They surrounded Qin Wentian. I'm Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the gazes of these maidens froze, as they stared at Qin Wentian with hesitation. You've returned. A voice drifted over from below. After which, Qin Wenyan saw a bewitching silhouette appearing. 2 to 3 years had passed, but Fairy Qingmei's countenance hadn't changed at all. "Hurry up and pay your respects to the palace lord." Fairy Qingmei spoke to the maidens. "Your subordinates pay our respects to the palace lord." The maidens all bowed. "Nichim." Qin Wenyan nodded. At this moment, Qin Wenyan could feel the killing intent he felt earlier vanishing in an instant. Numerous figures appeared one after another, standing in the air as they inclined their heads and stared at the young man in the air. Was this the most legendary young man in Granxia? "We pay our respects to the palace lord." Everyone bowed, paying their respects to Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan swept his gaze over them as a smile appeared on his face. The strength of these people before him wasn't bad at all, they were much stronger compared to the time when he left. Qin Wenyan saw a figure dressed in red standing among the crowd. She had an alluring figure as well as an elegant countenance. The corners of her lips curled up in a charming smile as she stared at him. "Everyone, just focus on your own matters. There's no need to bother about me." Qin Wenyan spoke. After which, he slowly descended, landing in front of the red-robed figure as he smiled gently. "Senior sister, how have you been these years? I've stayed here to help you. I've been tortured by you until I've become skinny." Luo Huan giggled. Her charming eyes were as mesmerizing as ever. Qin Wenyan contemplated Luo Huan's alluring figure. He couldn't help but smile. "Senior sister's figure is still as good as ever. Which part of you have become skinny?" Luo Huan walked up and helped Qin Wenyan straighten his collar. Her red lips curled up as she exhaled a fragrant breath. "You're still as good at talking as ever. Not only that, you're even more handsome than before. Have you missed your senior sister?" "Sis, stop trying to tempt me every time." Qin Wenyan bitterly smiled. Luo Huan's smile grew even more charming. "What's wrong with that? In any case, your little girlfriend isn't here. Whatever you want to do, senior sister won't blame you." Black lines appeared on Qin Wenyan's face. Seeing the awkward expression on his face, Luo Huan retreated a few steps, letting him off the hook. "Didn't Qing return with you?" Fairy Qingmei asked. Qin Wenyan's countenance dimmed when he heard Fairy Qingmei's words. He didn't know what to say. Qing's whereabouts are as elusive as a dragon's tail. If she doesn't wish to see me, it would be extremely hard for me to find her. Qin Wenyan bitterly smiled. Fairy Qingmei understood Qing the most. She also knew of Qing's extraordinary background. Upon hearing Qin Wenyan's words, a strange light flickered in her eyes, but she didn't probe further. "This time around, are you preparing to contend against Granxia? It's been so long, it's about time to fulfill Senior Azure Emperor's wish." Qin Wenyan nodded his head. "Senior Qingmei, I want the first battle to be held in the Azure Continent. The experts of the Azure Emperor Palace must gather in the Azure Continent within 6 days. Can you come to the unmatched realm to look for me?" 6 days? Not a problem. Fairy Qing nodded her head as a bewitching smile flickered in the depths of her eyes. "Do you want to invite the Mystic Moon Sect as well? If the Mystic Moon Sect is willing, let's go together." Qin Wenyan lightly nodded his head. "Do you want to stay here, or temporarily return to the Azure Continent?" Fairy Qingmei asked. "Those from the White Deer Institute as well as the Punishment Hall are not far from here. There should be some of them who wish to meet with you." "Okay, I'll stay here for a day." Qin Wenyan nodded his head. Fairy Qing smiled. "Go and arrange a place for the sect leader to rest." "Fairy, why do you need to arrange it? Just stay with me." Luo Huan giggled. Cough cough. Qin Wenyan's face was filled with black lines. "I said to stay in the same courtyard." "Junior brother, what are you thinking?" Luo Huan's eyes were like silk as she giggled at Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan immediately fled. Only his senior sister Luo Huan would dare to bully him like this. Bai Lu was much more obedient compared to Luo Huan. She was still as pure and beautiful as ever, and her big eyes were even more beautiful. After meeting with Qin Wenyan, she would only accompany him to chat, and occasionally discuss about divine inscriptions. However, after chatting for 2 hours, Qin Wendian sent her away. Maybe it was because Bai Lui didn't know what to say, or maybe it was because of the light in her eyes when she glanced at him, causing Qin Wendian to be at a loss on what to do. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.